hearing any issues of impeachment. But we know that there was a whole lot of petition, because the person who campaigned against the governor, the person who was challenging Martin Ombora for the seat, and this is Lenny Kivuti, took a petition to the court, and Lenny Kivuti lost that petition. He took it to the Court of Appeal, lost. Martin Ombora, not 9, but 12 lives. So, let's start where we normally start our show. COVID-19 in numbers.
259 new cases in Kenya. Tips Kenya well over the 5,000 case mark in terms of numbers on a general scale. And looking at, I don't even know you want to call them milestones or just markers that have been crossed by many nations around the world. The world numbers are now beyond 10 million. And we're looking specifically at 10,243,858. Kenya's numbers, as we see them now, at 6,070 cases in Kenya, 143 deaths, and quite a number of people still released. But then now, again, the worry eyebrows seem to be moving in an upward direction now, with more people being infected, and then more stories of COVID being, COVID hitting closer home for quite a number of people. We're going to look in depth to the Kenya situation a little bit more. But then, again, we have to look at the United States and what's going on there. 2.6 million. 2,637,077 cases in the U.S. with 128,437 deaths. The highest number of cases in Florida, 6,000 cases in the state of Florida on Friday alone, and rising between Friday and Sunday. And still, they say what the president is doing is taking kind of like a nonchalant attitude towards this and kind of hoping COVID away. But the reality on the ground is that it is not going anywhere right now. There's the whole mask debate that's going on in the US. To wear or not to wear masks. To protect or not to protect yourself or others from COVID. And that's raging in the States, but the cases continue to rise. Mexico as well, the cases continue to rise. 4,050 cases in the last 3 hours, less than 10% of the, in the last 6 hours, less than 10% of those have resulted in death. A lower number than what we've seen in the last 1 week. But then again, in Central and Southern America, those numbers continue to rise. Okay. South Africa increases in its number of cases. Of course, with its increased testing, this is still an issue. However, the interesting story that has come out of South Africa is that although most of the cases that have been tested are asymptomatic, we still have quite a number of people presenting to hospital in critical condition because of COVID. 138,134 cases in South Africa with 2,456 deaths in country. All right. This is what we look at. The numbers still remaining more or less the same. Now 24,567 cases in Nigeria. 16,742 cases in Ghana. Algeria at 13,273. And Cameroon at 12,592. Morocco, 12,052 cases. So this is what we continue to see in the area. I want to look at Uganda and Rwanda, and those have not changed too much. Still no deaths recorded in Uganda, and the cases are still pretty low with what we're looking at. We know that Tanzania is still at 509 cases, but that remains the same. Uganda's cases, if you just give me a minute to find out exactly what that is, still pretty low. I'll find that in a bit, but the status quo remains more or less the same. Still keeping quite a tight tab on what is going on in terms of lockdowns and measures in place to make sure that nothing goes wrong. 859 cases, the total in Uganda now, with 0 deaths. And if you want to look at Rwanda, 900 cases and 0 deaths. So
Uganda, there was some deaths earlier.
In Uganda?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, you mentioned about 2 or 3 deaths or so. There had been deaths in Uganda.
No, there had been deaths in Rwanda. We talked about an increase of cases in Uganda, but there have been 0 deaths in Uganda.
Let me ask a
and
question.
2 deaths in Rwanda.
In Tanzania, we know because it has been reported that the president claimed so. The matter of the results is not open to public scrutiny. Meaning, you can't simply ask if you're a foreigner, what is...
what's the status of...
and you will not be told, not necessarily, correct?
Yep.
In Uganda, is it a similar situation? In Rwanda, is it a similar situation?
They announced. The difference between those, it's like day and night. In terms of Uganda, actually, the president himself comes out and gives a status update and says, this is what we have so far, and these are the measures that we are taking. Increasing restrictions or reducing restrictions. Similar case happens in Rwanda with the Prime Minister himself releasing statements on what's happening.
Why I bring this up is because one of the things that happened to Uganda, on this continent, one only saw it in South Africa, the ravages of HIV. How it decimated populations and decimated families and more or less rearranged the social order in many, many places.
Yeah.
So these are people who understand that anything called an epidemic is not something you joke with. You take it as seriously as you possibly can. As I say, as seriously as a heart attack. Tanzania didn't have that problem.
So they don't know.
They actually don't know. But this is the thing. You don't need to have the experience to know. You can learn from others.
You can look.
Look and see. And in fact, learning from others, should we say, is a wiser thing, because you realize if our friends went this way, then this is something we must avoid. Yes. However, it appears that the experiment with herd immunity is still going on. Let's see how it turns out.
In Tanzania.
Yes, it is. It is.
And these countries that have had elections recently, how are they doing? So we have Malawi, we have Burundi.
How did people vote? Electronically?
Of course not.
No.
There were campaigns, there were everything.
How did people campaign? Electronically?
Nope.
Okay.
Malawi has 1146, so that's 1,146 cases with 13 deaths. Still very, very low. If we're doing any kind of comparative analysis with the rest of the world.
And how many people have been tested in that country?
It would be interesting to know how many people have been tested on a whole, and find that out. If you just want to look at the numbers off the top of it, though, however, Burundi is still also recording quite low cases, with 170 cases in Burundi and 1 death.
Remember, some of these high cases we keep hearing about in the States can be directly related to the vigorous testing that they do.
Yep.
Oh, I think that goes without saying. That, they're testing quite highly.
So they have a fairly accurate handle on what's actually going on. If you are not testing vigorously, one could say that you are basing your entire thinking on false hope.
This is true. Also interesting, though, in the United States is that they are testing quite rigorously. However, there are lots of people who are presenting themselves to hospital sick. So as they're presenting themselves sick, the testing takes place. But there are lots of people who are falling sick, as opposed to random testing in community or targeted testing by government, and then you happen to find that people are sick and asymptomatic. In the US, people are presenting with symptoms and then being tested.
It means COVID is not stigmatized.
No, not in the US.
In the States.
But even the rest of Europe, you cannot say it is stigmatized. Because the manner in which the population in Europe have responded to COVID, it's like they've supported government efforts. Ours thwart government efforts.
Are you saying that in Kenya, people have COVID and they're not presenting themselves to hospital?
Yes, I am saying precisely that. So long as
people are falling sick.
systems,
people are falling sick and not going to hospital because of COVID.
I'm saying that. I am saying that because people are accustomed to being sick. What you're going to find is people will self-medicate.
Yeah.
Because all the indications, all the symptoms that we've been told about COVID are symptoms that people are used to.
Yep.
There's nothing completely untoward that you'd say, this is new. Not really. It's only when it is advanced, then you'll have symptoms that should be alarming if you're aware.
Yeah.
But so long as it isn't alarming, cold, headache, people encounter those things, and they've been encountering them for a long time.
Is what people are doing now different from what they've been doing before COVID? Self-medicating, looking at the symptoms that you're getting, and you're saying, I could self-medicate. I will not go to hospital unless. Is that not our health-seeking behavior?
It is.
Even
it
before COVID?
It is our health-seeking behavior before COVID. So long as the symptoms are things that you feel you're familiar with, you self-medicate, or you just sort of like tough it out.
Yeah. Until it gets worse.
When you feel very, very sick,
That's when you go to hospital.
that's when you go to hospital.
All right. So in the States, people are feeling bad and going to hospital.
And going to hospital, yeah.
Their health care
And I can
seeking behavior is
imagine
different.
they're all, or maybe also they're trying to do all those other things, trying to take the malaria medicine, trying to swallow Jik and the rest. They're doing everything before they go to hospital.
Good Lord.
Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather, and when we come out of this, we will be looking at the newspapers today. You can read the standard newspaper from your mobile device. If you have a Safaricom mobile device and you have around 20 shillings airtime, you can dial *550*2#. That's *550*2#, and you will be able to read the standard newspaper, today's standard newspaper, from the comfort of your wherever you are right now.
Eric, around 20 shillings is how much exactly?
It's 20 bob.
Okay.
If you've got 20 bob,
Not 19 or 21. All right.
if you've got at least 20 shillings airtime on your phone, you will read the paper at *550*2#. That's *550*2#. You don't need to sign up any forms, nor data bundles to worry about, nor apps to download. Shortly, we will be giving you a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Just read the paper, and then we'll tell you why you can win, how you can win. Good morning.
#24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's see how we're going to start the week and see what the skies have in store for us today. In Nairobi at 13 degrees, it's going to be clear skies all through, highs of 24. Taking a look then into Nyeri today, where 22 will be the high and showers will come down through most parts of the afternoon. It's clear skies and sunny conditions in Nakuru this morning, 23 degrees the high and lows of 11. In Eldoret at 12 degrees, clear skies all through, 22 degrees, the high and lows of 11. Kisumu is pretty cloudy this morning at 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's 25 degrees and partly cloudy in Malindi, highs of 29 and lows of 24 today. It's going to be clear skies and sunny conditions in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 24. All right, let's skip out of Kenya now. And in Kampala, 19 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And in Dar es Salaam at 23 degrees, we'll see highs of 32 and lows of 22. Joburg today is clear skies at 4 degrees, highs of 17, and it'll come down to a low of 1. In Lagos at 24 degrees, it's clear skies. Thunderstorms expected quite early today with highs of 27 and lows of 23. Paris is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. Highs of 23 and lows of 14. London is partly cloudy at 13 degrees. We will see cloudy conditions later on in the day with highs of 19 and lows of 12. All right, let's take a look into New York, where it's still Sunday night and we see currently 23 degrees and cloudy conditions. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 22. Let's do something crazy. We're looking Yangon, Myanmar today, where it's mostly cloudy at 29 degrees. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24. And monsoon season still continues. And that's what it looks like throughout the world today.
Minutes of the 6. Satan Muga. What is today's problem?
Today's problem is when you befriend a chief, remember that he sits on a rope.
Why does the chief sit on a rope in
Let me
Uganda?
repeat it. When you befriend a chief, remember that he sits on a rope, as in precarious.
So therefore,
So long as he is chief, you might enjoy the benefits of his chiefdom or his chiefship. Should he fall from grace?
it doesn't last long.
Not really. It could go either way, the blink of an eye. And should it go the other way, then whatever benefits you have will head in that same direction.
Hey, okay. Okay. Do you want to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime? Just dial from your Safaricom mobile phone, star 550 star 2 hash, and with at least 20 shillings worth of airtime, you'll be deducted 20 bob, and that will be the cost of the Standard newspaper. Now, to win this, just call us 0719 012 600 and tell us the headline of this story. It's on page 8 of the Standard. What's the headline of this story? A trader who conned Kitui South MP Rachel Nyamai 10 million shillings on a promise of selling her a piece of land in Karen has been declared bankrupt. This man is, according to Lady Justice Maureen Odero, James Mbaluka has been declared bankrupt for failing to refund the MP her money and ordered that a receiver manager be appointed to manage his properties until the full amount from the MP is repaid. Having failed to repay the full amount owed despite a court order, I am satisfied that James Mbaluka be adjudged as bankrupt and the court appoints the official receiver manager. So Mbaluka was among several suspects who were charged in court with a controversial transfer of the 134 acres piece of land in Karen, some prime piece of plot that belonged to late businessman Horatius Dagama Rose. It was the disputed land that he attempted to sell to Nyamai in July 2014 in the pretext that he could help her acquire a portion. The MP, through lawyer Angela Mwadumbo, told the court that she wanted to purchase land in Nairobi and had met Mbaluka, who promised to help her get it. The MP waited for him to procure necessary documents, but he would come up with excuses as to why he could not get them until she decided to rescind the agreement and demand a refund. So now, 10 million shillings debt has made a trader be declared bankrupt by the courts, and his property has gone into a receiver manager who is going to find ways of securing his 10 million shillings through the MP, Ms. Rachel Nyamai. So, page 8 of the Standard. What's the headline of the story? What is the headline of the story on the page 8 of the Standard? 0719-012-600 between now and 7 o'clock. You stand a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. What other headlines can we look at today, Ndu?
All right. It's panic in Parliament as COVID-19 strikes MPs, and there's a scare. Fingered as one of the weak links in the fight against the virus, MPs schemed and counter-schemed political plots the whole of June. And now COVID has struck at the core of the House, sending legislators into panic. Okay. So apparently there's an issue here. And I'm going to give you details of that story. Anxiety has hit Parliament after 6 legislators tested positive for coronavirus. The lawmakers are admitted in different hospitals in Nairobi, with one said to be in the intensive care unit. Meanwhile, sources revealed that many other legislators who had come into contact with their positive colleagues rushed to get tested during the weekend, raising fears that the number of the positive cases could rise once their pending results are released. Yep. Among those said to be in hospital is a ranking member of the National Assembly, who by virtue of his office is feared to have exposed himself to many of his colleagues, with confidential sources indicating to the Standard that more than 20 legislators had gone for tests after learning of his hospitalization.
Wow. Okay. So, we already know that it has hit State House. It has hit the judiciary. It was, just a matter of time before you look at what's the other place where you have congregations and gatherings in a public institution. And of course, the Parliament is one of those. So it's a sad story to know that one of them is in ICU, and we wish whoever that person is quickest of recoveries, right? And it also brings us back to measures that are being taken. Publicly, when you watch parliamentary proceedings, you actually see that they are doing a lot to observe the measures. A lot is inside the chamber, in terms of observing physical distancing where they sit, in terms of regularly and constantly disinfecting the surfaces. You see the parliamentary staff coming whenever somebody has actually gone to speak. They come and disinfect that. They go and disinfect the seats and the speakers, even the mace itself before it's touched. So they're doing all those measures. They're putting in place all the measures to avoid contamination or contacting or contracting the virus. Right. So probably you still can also look at it from when they get out of Parliament.
Where do they go?
Yes. And do they still observe the same measures? Parliament as an institution may be doing all these things, but the individuals who go into these parliamentary chambers may not be following the measures. And that's why I think whole collectively as a country, that's what we are facing. I think it's just a mirror of what we do.
Yeah, could be. Well, more or less in the same vein, still on that story. Sitting in prison 1 year into her sentence, Elizabeth Adisa, 23, thought life as she knew it was over, at least for another 3 years. And she had been sentenced to jail for child neglect sentenced to prison in July 2019. Now, to her shock, she's walked out of the prison gate, having served just a quarter of her sentence. And there are many others who have also gotten this favor, and this is as a result of 4,000 prisoners to be released by the government to decongest prisons in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is something that they had told us a few months ago that they were going to do, and we've seen that it has actually happened. Quite a number of people with different stories have actually been let out of prison, and because of the fact that they're trying to say that this is another hotspot that you talked about, Eric. where it's likely to see high levels of infection. So this has started around the country from different units. And we see that people now are being allowed to go home. And these are now some of the offenses which, could be seen that you could rehabilitate outside of prison walls. So then, of course, COVID has brought that about. Then goes to question is that some of the cases that are actually in prison, if they're absolutely necessary for them to be in prison, or could there have been other ways for rehabilitation? That's another conversation that could pop out of this.
It's interesting. Countries that have had high rates of infections of COVID have similar policies, meaning unless you're really, 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 really sick, call, or this is what you do. You're told.
Yeah.
Do this, do the other. Hospital is for the genuinely and extremely sick.
Yeah.
Prison, this lady was, what's her name again? Elizabeth Adisa. Child neglect. What are you jailing her for?
Right.
Exactly.
Putting her in the same place as, a murderer, for example.
Yeah. What is she being jailed for? Again, do we have facilities where you can, should we say, rehabilitate the person?
Right.
What are the circumstances that led to this neglect? Again, circumstances are never looked into. Not really.
It raises a big issue here. I think also the judges and magistrates have their hands tied.
They do.
But, and this is something that the former CJ had started having a conversation about, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms and strengthening those, and seeing also non-custodial sentencing of people. Because we are filling up the prison services, our correctional facilities, with cases that don't necessarily need to end up there. How can we have other non-custodial sentencing happening? How can we punish people? How can we say that, well, you shall be going to visit the local chief or parole
Community
officer
service,
this long,
probation kind
but
of
then
thing.
you do community service. How shall you serve this? How can you serve your sentence without necessarily being behind bars? A conversation that he started, a conversation that starts going somewhere, but then
Dies.
they seem not to have cracked it on what's the solution.
Our
to this.
correctional facilities, as we call them, are they really correctional?
No.
No. What kind of rehabilitation actually
They are
takes
not
place?
rehabilitation.
They're not. Because then, quite a number of studies have been done about people who have been there for a number of years and what their state is while they're still there. And then number of people who have come out. And then you ask yourself, has this person actually been put back into society better as a result of the time that they spent locked up? And unfortunately, the resounding answer has been no.
How many countries in the world actually do have correctional facilities where people go in and they come out
Better.
There are very few. And again, I'm going to go to the Scandinavian countries because that's where it actually happens. Of the very few on the globe, it actually happens there. Until you have some people. We had one famous story out of the US where a lady had been jailed for 20 years and she came out and she said, you know what? I have nowhere to go. So I'm going to ask that you take me back. In one story that came out of Sweden is that this gentleman had been in jail for 17 years and he actually came out much his and as is the story for quite a number of people, much better, thinking on a different scale. And this is the thing, thinking, not just doing. The outlook towards life, the mental, your mental, social capability actually then changes. Came out with two degrees, then was able to practice, went back into society, then as a community worker. You could see the difference between when they went in and out. And
it also happens, in spaced out cases, even in Kenya, where somebody actually goes to prison and they come out and they tell their story and they go around saying, this happened, I went to prison, I came out, I decided to change. But it's not that the system is wired to encourage you to change. You actually go in there, you get out worse.
Hardened.
Yeah.
More hardened than you were when you went in.
Worse than you were before. 24 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Taking a quick look at traffic, what's happening on the roads this early morning on a Monday morning. And then the conversation continues. We're looking at what's been covered in the newspapers, what happened over the weekend, what do we need to look at coming into the new week. Good morning.
All right. It's looking really good. Outering Kariobangi, it looks like it's going to be busy this morning. Traffic has already started to build up, and it's a Monday morning. Inbound on Thika Road today, it is quite full. Wayaki Way is very smooth on both sides, and we see that it's moving along quite well. All right, Ngong Road is opening up this morning, and traffic has already started to build up all the way, and it's going to lead you to the city mortuary roundabout, and it shouldn't be too difficult moving beyond that. We'll take a look at Mombasa Road and what's happening there in a short while, but it will be fine. From what we see, it'll probably build up right around 7 o'clock. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, but for now, it doesn't look too terrible. It might clog up though later, and we'll be ready for just that.
Alright, remember you can win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime if you dial star 550 star 2 hash on your Safaricom mobile, and for just 20 shillings you'll be able to read today's Standard newspaper. So for you to win this 1,000 shillings worth of airtime, we just want you to tell us this story on page 8. What's the headline to this story? A trader who conned Kitui South MP Rachel Nyamai 10 million shillings on a promise of selling her a piece of land in Karen has been declared bankrupt because he could not refund the 10 million shillings that she has received from him. Yeah. So this is what we are asking this morning. Bosire in Rongai, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Bosire?
I'm very fine.
How is the Republic of Rongai?
We're just doing fine here.
Very good. Now, Bosire, you want to try answering this question?
Yes.
On page 8 of the Standard, what's the headline of that story?
Trader declared bankrupt over MP's 10 million debt.
Very good. Trader declared bankrupt over MP's 10 million shilling debt. So who are the characters in this story?
There is an MP.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another trader over there.
There's another trader over there. Have you had a chance to look at that and see who the trader is?
I haven't really gone through the paper.
Okay. So, well, the trader, what's the name of the trader? James Mbaluka is the name of the trader. And the MP's name is, of course, Rachel Nyamai. And then the other character in the story is Lady Justice Maureen Odero.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are the characters in this story. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, congratulations, my brother.
Thank you.
1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime is coming your way. You'll speak to our producer, John. He'll take your details, and you'll receive your 1,000 bob. And you can go back onto that link, star 550 star 2 hash, and just do a monthly subscription.
Yeah, thank you.
And then you'll be free. And tomorrow you can try again and win another 1,000 shillings.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
Cheers.
All right. There's a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. Tomorrow, you stand a chance of winning 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Remember, just to access this is star 550 star 2 hash. Hey. What is it? Okay, so other headlines, all right? We have a new president in Malawi, and everybody's congratulating this new president. Who is this new president?
Well, it would appear that everybody's congratulating him. Lazarus Chakwera, for his victory in the just concluded presidential elections. He defeated Peter Mutharika with a 58.57% of the vote in last Tuesday's poll. They were announced by the Electoral Commission on Saturday. And Senator Gideon Moy has said that Chakwera deserved the victory. He expressed his gratitude to the president on behalf of the late President Daniel Arap Moy. As to celebrate this victory, I quote, "I wish to express our gratitude to him on behalf of the Moy family, having stood with us when we lost Mzee in early February this year and having attended the funeral at Kabarak." Chakwera is he's the flag bearer of the Tonse Alliance and the leader of the Malawi Congress Party. And they campaigned vigorously on the platform of unity in the midst of diversity and placed premium on enhanced provision of social services such as healthcare, water, education, and infrastructure, among others. He's touted to be the new messiah of Malawi, from what we are hearing across the country. Everybody's saying, look, we of course understand the history behind this particular election. There was a petition.
It was a repeat election.
Yeah. It was a repeat election, yes. There was a petition. They went back to the polls. It was repeated. And now President Chakwera won. And it's saying that, everybody's saying that, look, this is the guy who is going to lift the profile of this country. It's
the
been
man is
long
a preacher.
Awaited. Yeah, and there's Messiah for a reason. Yeah.
Assemblies of God. Actually, he is, apparently, he's even lived in Kenya. He's taught at that college in Buruburu. What's it called? East Africa Theology College or something like that. It's one of those very prominent, just as you get into Buruburu. The headline on one of the dailies in Malawi yesterday, Nation on Sunday, Lazarus rises.
Zambia had a leader who had similar credentials and a similar background. Turned out to be an utter and a complete disaster.
Belly up. Belly up is what happened in Zambia, unfortunately. The Malawians can only hope.
He wasn't an ordained minister. No. But he was born again and then some. But somehow...
The some bit was his undoing.
Yeah.
He should have just let it on the born again.
He left, he somehow... I don't know, we don't seem to have a very good history with people who claim to be Christians and then some. Because Burundi, the late Burundian president, had similar credentials.
He too did.
Yes. Apart from his football playing prowess,
An avocado
he's a man who, he was known for his, should we say his praying prowess.
Yep. He'd always ask the Lord for...
He did. He did. We didn't go into the details of asking which particular Lord he was asking these things, because one thing that he did do, he did stop all the skirmishes and squabbling that was in his country, and that kept dividing the country. That he did. But his rule wasn't marked with the sort of equanimity that you could easily associate with the principles of Christian living. No, unfortunately.
So Mr. Lazarus now is promising to do better by his people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Promising to offer, better leadership. Saying, the dynasties have fallen. For a long time, we have been led in this country by two dynastic families. And now we are seeing a difference.
This is the time.
It could be spelling something. If you look at the region, the Lord is basically planting his people to lead.
Okay.
This is the gospel according to Latif?
Bringing down dynasties, right? And people who really...
Putting in the lowly and the meek?
Yes, the lowly and the meek.
Okay.
Especially those that really pray and go to church regularly, like on Sundays, and interact with the church flock. It's happening in the region.
Yes, we see what's going on. East and Southern Africa is leading the way.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out.
Watch ye, the signs are coming.
We're going to look at this more in depth, that's for sure, and to see what is going on here. And it's
it's odd. The founding father of Zambia himself was Christian, but he wasn't in the league of Chiloba. He was just known to be Christian. He was president, and he left the presidency and got on with his life.
Yeah.
Chiloba, on the other hand, was fiery. My friend, there too...
Chiloba had presence.
He had, let me say, what he lacked in height, he made up for, I think, in presence. Yes.
In everything else.
Even if you didn't see him, you felt him.
He's not someone you're going to actually ignore. But the point I'm trying to get at is this. It is one thing to lead a church, because this is a congregation of people who share, by virtue of their being in church, they share certain beliefs with you. And there are certain common rules that everybody understands you must abide by. Running a country,
a little different.
It is significantly different. Significantly. And the pressures and the expectations, sometimes I think, if I'm to be fair to these leaders, they expect of a human in human things or unhuman things or things that are beyond human ability. Or because you expect this person to perform miracles. He is a person, he is a man.
Also comes from the fact that sometimes you see these folks come out and make these, professions of miraculous intent. They do.
They
come out and say, I'm
because
going to do this
their
fantastic
background, if you come, let's say, from a preacher's background or an evangelist, your outlook towards things is one thing. You may even enter politics with that thinking, and you will have people who follow you. The practicality of it. Remember, if I'm a preacher, I don't really have to provide a ready solution. My ready solution lies in prayers.
God will provide.
Yes, my
God
ready
will
solution
do
lies in the tenets that require solution finding, as in praying and fasting. Politics, totally different kettle of fish.
You have to deliver.
Oh man.
You can't tell people, wait, God
and
is going
you
to
are
answer.
dealing with people who don't share your faith, who don't share your convictions, and whom you have to work with.
And people, when you tell them that, God is going to answer, they'll tell you, bollocks. Let's get this show on the road.
So you're talking about which president of Zambia again?
Kaunda was a Christian, but not as far as Chiloba.
Chilu.
Yes, Chiluba. They call him Chiloba.
Yes, you said Chiloba.
I'm confusing him with this gentleman who headed our election. Yes. Okay. Now, one could argue that there are certain individuals who give the faith a bad name. Because, and it's not, in my opinion, that they're bad people. They get into a job and they're not fully prepared for what they're going to find. They think it is something, it's a walk in the park where you're going to talk Christianese and you're going to talk about the things that you expect God to do, but God expects you to do certain things as well.
It would be a very nice thing if you actually had somebody who had serious oratory skills like a preacher, who is able to convince people to follow a certain path, being able to deliver.
Being able to deliver
it would be a very nice mix.
In ensuring that you
because you'd be able to actually rally the people around the cause. You are able to preach to people, you're able to convince people. If you're able to rally the people around the cause and you actually mean it and you're able to deliver, oh my goodness, can you imagine where Malawi will be?
If only you then understand that there are people called bureaucrats and people who actually get things done, and these are people who can actually get things done.
And if you can also convince them to do the things that you want them to do.
Yes. But if you think it is you who's going to get those things done,
Forget about it.
Pole. 13 minutes to 7. This is a situation on Kenya's biggest conversation. Quick break, and then we continue the conversation. So something else that was interesting happened around Saturday, was it? From the Twitter handle of one Kivuza Kibwana, where he went and declared that he is interested in gunning for the top office. Now, there's been this back and forth of, is it true? Is this Kivutha's actual account? Is it the legit account or not, the official Twitter handle of the man, or is it not? Basically, what the Twitter was saying is, I have listened to the voice of Wanjiku asking me to run for the presidency in the coming election. I'm available, ready and willing to be Wanjiku's president. We'll go all the way to the ballot box with Wanjiku in 2022. We must ensure devolution works for our communities. Now, since then, he has tweeted again, I'm overwhelmed by your reception of my presidency announcement. We're in this together to the end. We shall shape everything together. And then again, 7 hours ago, thank you, Kenyans, for the overwhelming support towards our joint presidential bid. Many have graciously offered to co-own the campaign. We shall co-create our winning strategy. Davis versus Goliath battle is looming, and God is on our side. Questions abound. Looking at that Twitter handle, it's a Twitter handle that tweets everything about Kivutha Kibwana on a regular, on a sort of a daily basis. Okay? Then has Kivutha himself come out to say yes or not? But it's not the first time that Kivutha Kibwana has come out to say, I want to vie for the presidency. I remember, was it last year or the year before, he was speaking somewhere in Turkana and he said, I can put myself up for presidency. Now, today, on the page 4 of The Nation, the headline is Muhisa Kitui eyeing political comeback? The ANC's Musalia Mudavadi and Fort Kenya's Moses Wetangula might have a new headache on their doorstep if a former trade minister is said to have sent a text message supporting changes in Fort Kenya, and he sounds like a man on a mission. Of all the Fort Kenya veterans, Dr. Kitui has maintained his mien, and he hardly comments on local politics. So it was rather surprising when he was said to have sent a text message supporting the recent changes within Fort K, a party that he helped mold in the 90s. As the 7th Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, Dr. Kitui still has 14 months to go before his second term ends on the 31st of August 2021 and is removed from both the national and party politics. All at the best, he is still Kenya's highest-ranking diplomat within the UN system, a lofty role that allows him to hobnob with heads of state and governments. At worst, he is removed from succession turmoil that has been seen political parties start regrouping ahead of President Uhuru Kenyatta's exit. People have said before, Kitui, what next after he's done with the UNCTAD job? He himself has actually come out to speak out and say, you know what, this top-level jobs in the UN are rotational, and they rotate not just by country but by region. Mm-hmm. So the first, I have come from Africa, that's how I got this position. I do not expect that another African is going to succeed me. Secondly, I don't expect that in other, I can move from this one to hop onto another big job, because clearly Africa will be looking at, now we have a Kenyan here, can we get somebody else from another part of Africa? So he's basically said, I think I have reached a point where at the UN, in the UN circles, I don't see myself rising or staying to go to a position of Secretary General, some have been saying. So his likely journey is to come back and seek to shape the destiny of our country.
As
whatever. Okay. So, as whatever.
Okay.
When Kivutha Kibwana announced
it could be
this,
anything from what you're saying.
when
MP,
Kivutha Kibwana announced
Senator,
this,
Governor.
there are those that started creating memes and saying Kivutha as president and Dr. Muhisa Kitui as deputy president.
Hope must spring eternal. You must aspire. And what Kivutha is doing and what is being alleged Dr. Kitui has intentions towards is perfectly normal. You've reached a certain point in your life, politically, and the progression. Muhisa Kitui can't come back to Kenya and say he wants to be an MCA.
Surely.
No.
Absolutely not.
No. So, he's been an MP, he's been a minister. So, what else?
It's moving on up.
Yes, next thing.
There's a little detail here. Little small detail.
Okay.
Same with Kivutha, small detail. To be president, you really need support all over the country.
Because it's a country.
Yes, but you really need to have a solid block of people in your backyard supporting you. That's how the politics of this country works. In the absence of that, You can continue
It
thinking
will just
and
be
dreaming
hope.
of being president, and it's a good thing.
It will be a dream.
Not just
Is it
dream.
not possible for Kivutha Kibwana to galvanize the Kamba? Basically, let's look at the Kamba politicians. In Kamba politics, we have Kivutha Kibwana wants to be president. Dr. Alfred Mutua wants to be president, all right? Kalonzo Musyoka has not said he does not want to be president.
He always
And
wants
we
to be
know that
president.
he has wanted to be president
He always
before,
wants to be
right?
president.
So he's still, as far as we're concerned, he's still in the ring. Charity Ngilu has tried to be president before. She's now a governor. All right? We don't know whether she may have aspirations of wanting to be president. Those three governors have come together, have coalesced, and they have formed some sort of, mini coalition of Ukambani leaders in which they say that they'll work together, they'll see how to support each other to galvanize the Kamba vote. What if they actually sat down and they agreed, Dr. Mutua, support Kivutha, Charity, support Kivutha, Kalonzo himself says Kivutha tosha. He can get the numbers.
That politics is a bit tricky in our country. It's genuinely tricky.
It's hard for him to convince them.
It is really very difficult. Because each of those people are ambitious. Politicians don't go around giving way to other politicians unless they can see
Just like that.
some very serious benefit that they're going to.
Probably there'll be some serious benefit.
And also, remember, for that to work, you're saying you needed to have convinced, that is to be president, other leaders of other regions who support you.
To come and support
But
you.
they themselves want to be president. Why should they support you?
Because of what you're likely to offer them.
No.
Same way we've seen other leaders, for example, these Western leaders that we've just mentioned here, Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, have supported Raila. They have first of all come out to say, I want to be president. And then they sit back and they agree, all right, I think for our best chance is let's support this one person to be president. Kalonzo the same.
You know, the one time when that formula had the greatest chance of working was when Ford was first formed. Because it was formed with the understanding that they wanted to gang up together and get rid of the presidency of Moi.
Yep.
Didn't work. Why it didn't work? The first person who took cover was Kenneth Matiba. Off. So that coalition already was fragmented.
Yep.
Before it started, actually.
And then it continued to fragment. The election that followed, we saw how it went.
But you're looking at like the kind of support that Raila has been able to galvanize in the previous two elections. Actually, the previous three elections, right? NAC, NASA, and ODM. He's been able to bring in the other leaders, sort of, let's call them the kingpins of their regions, to come and rally behind him and say, we support you to be the flag bearer of this ticket.
Yes.
That's fine. So
Yes.
we've seen it work. And now we keep hearing from all Raila supporters that, he commands about over 40% support across the country. Some argue it goes to over 50%. But yes, it's substantial kind of support because
So
we have leaders from other regions.
So in essence,
supporting
what
him.
you're saying is if Raila supports Kivutha, then his chances of the presidency is very high.
No, if other leaders support Kivutha
1
the
plus 1
same
is
way they
2.
have supported Raila, he has tons of chance.
And with Raila still vying for that same seat.
No. Well, with Raila still vying for the same seat without the other
Well, it
supporters.
will be an interesting scenario. But it is not a complicated scenario and it's not also difficult to tell. You know why? There's something called precedence, all right? People tend to gravitate. The Mwananchi, and the Mwananchi makes this decision, and it doesn't matter how much politicking you do. They tend to figure out, where do I think power is actually headed towards? Where do I think it's headed? And so long as there seems to be some indication that power is headed in a certain direction, that's where they'll gravitate towards.
That's where they'll go.
That's where they'll gravitate towards, believe me. If there's a Raila-Uhuru alliance, those other alliances have an uphill task.
They'll put up a formidable fight.
They may put up a fight. Whether it's formidable, I doubt. Because you're talking about a sitting president who is vying for a certain position and is aligned with one of the strongest opposition leaders this country has ever seen. Yeah.
Acha tuone. Coming up to the top of the hour, remind us today's proverb from
Today's
Uganda.
proverb is, when you befriend a chief, just remember one thing. He sits on a rope.
He sits on a rope.
I mean, go ahead and befriend him, but remember he's sitting on a rope.
Won't last for long.
It's tricky. It could last, but it's a balancing act.
Okay. Good morning. It's a Situation Room. It's now 7 o'clock.
All right, if you're on Mombasa Road and you're heading towards Cabanas, please know that there's an accident that has happened at the Imara footbridge within 4 vehicles already this Monday morning, and that means that traffic has tailed back all the way to Cabanas, and then moving forward is going to be a bit of a tricky situation this morning. So if you're coming in that direction and you're stuck, that's why you're stuck, trying to get that accident cleared out of the way this morning. All right, looking at other parts, and Ngong Road and Langata Road moving smoothly this morning. A little bit of a hold up at the respective roundabouts. Coming off of Thika Road into the city centre, traffic inbound is quite high this morning. A lot of people coming back into the city from this direction, as usual. Right around the Pangani underpass, it'll move a little bit slower as you now have traffic joining from Kiambu Road and the Muthaiga corner. Beyond that, it doesn't look too terrible in other parts. As the eastern and southern bypasses are moving along quite smoothly this morning. We'll look out for what might be an issue that might keep you stuck, but for now we don't see anything of that nature. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. It's a Monday morning and things are bound to get a little bit crazier as the minutes tick by.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT
Happy New Week
Muga,
to you. Thank you very much for
researcher,
tuning into the
academic.
Situation Room on Spice FM 94.4, Nairobi, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 in Kisumu, 96.0 is in Nakuru, 102.5 is Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and wherever you are around the world on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Some shout out to Meg Joseph, who's tuned in live in Doha, Qatar. Lawrence Karia and Sospita Muruli. Sospita says Sospita is in Kayole. And Paul Onyango tuned in as usual. And then we have greetings from Yangon with the handshake. Ugo Oko. This is your sister.
Yeah.
She's in Myanmar.
Right.
Bomber Market. Upper 2.
Just here.
Okay. Bomber Market. Yeah. You have to do it the Kenyan way. Yeah. Just here.
Okay. Use your lips.
Yeah. Good morning, Ugo. All the best. So, let's talk about some very serious stories that have been covered in the paper today. Okay? I'm going to read 2. I'll read 1 and then we can look at the other one. First one is a suspected serial killer who's been arrested by Nyandarua police. They arrested a suspected serial killer believed to be behind the killings of mothers and children in Oljoro Rock constituency. A 27-year-old man whose real name police believe is Jason Karaoke, but was found in possession of multiple ID cards, was arrested moments after he dug a tunnel in the house of a victim and made his way inside before escaping when she raised alarm. Dug a tunnel, made his way inside. She saw him, raised the alarm, escaped. The victim identified him and reported to a police station. He was arrested a few minutes to noon yesterday at his house. Police say that they had made a huge stride by the arrest, which comes just days after top security officers visited Nyandarua and Laikipia counties after months of concern over the rising cases of women and children murders. This visit by the Interior Ministry officials culminated in the transfer of top police officers in the area. The transfers are suspected to have been occasioned by the rising cases of crime, such as murders, cattle rustling, and robbery. So, in Oljoro Rock Sub-County Police Commander Wanyama Nyongesa says the suspect moved to the victim's house at about 3 p.m., entered through the tunnel, but she heard him as he walked towards the bed. She I suspect it should have been 3 a.m. She pleaded with the killer not to harm her and the children while also raising alarm. The suspect escaped, but the woman was able to identify him. She led the police to the suspect's house where they recovered crude weapons used in tunnel digging and murder. Police recovered 6 mobile phones that the suspect could not account for, which are now with detectives. Investigations are seeking to establish whether the suspect is behind the spate of killings and whether he operated alone. This is a case in Oljororok, Nyandarua. We also know that police are holding somebody in Nairobi suspected of the same thing, murdering women. Was caught on camera from living with a woman at a club in Nairobi. That woman was later found dead. Another decapitated body of a woman was found somewhere dumped, and police came back and they found this a lot of paraphernalia and bloody things in this man's house in Buruburu. Man is arrested, investigations ongoing. This is crazy. Now, the one that is even more serious is this story of a mother who killed her 4 children, okay, in Naivasha. And this is one that is, it's covered, extensively in the papers this morning. 4 murders, a chilling note, and a suspect mother. This is a story of 4 children who were killed on Saturday in Naivasha and were strangled one by one. According to police investigations, the children aged between 8 and 2 were lured into their bedroom where they were killed and their bodies laid on their beds. Their 42-year-old mother has since been arrested and is assisting the police with the investigations. They identified the children. Tears flowed freely on Saturday as neighbors and residents tried to come to terms with a shocking incident near Naivasha High School. According to police report, the suspect had 3 children from her first marriage but fell out with her husband, who left them behind. She would marry again in Naivasha, where she bore the 4 children who were killed on Saturday, and had been working with an NGO in educating youth on emerging job opportunities. Basically, so this woman was working for an NGO. 2 months ago, COVID made her lose her job. Since then, she's been here struggling to fend for her children. Gets to a point where on Saturday, she starts sending messages to her relatives and she starts talking to her neighbors. But it turns out that she actually says, according to her own confession, with a note that she left behind, she killed the children. Then she writes to her firstborn child. Remember, she has sort of, let's say, 2 families. She has 3 children from a first marriage. She has 4 children who are living with her now in Naivasha. So she writes to the firstborn of the other 3 children and tells them, look, this is what I've done. I have decided to kill these 4 children so that I cut them off from the generation link from their family. I want you to take care of your siblings, your 2 siblings. I want you to be responsible. I want you to make sure that you fend for them. I want you to be strong. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail. This is what I have done. She then calls her brother and says, this is what I have done. Between 8 and 9 a.m., she commits these murders. At 10 a.m., she leaves her house and goes to a bar. At 3 p.m., she calls her brother, inform him of what she has done. At 5 p.m., police recover the bodies, and she's arrested at 6. What is that?
It's a really difficult one because, I mean, when you go from the previous story of femicide and then now what you see as infanticide, and, she's gone beyond, just on this most recent story now, she's gone beyond just committing the act, but then going further and kind of removing the shame from this act by telling people what she has actually done.
Yep.
So she's used an avenue to kind of explain away the situation. So in her mind, what she has done is explainable. Well, we're sitting here aghast saying, how can you take the life of children, regardless of what the situation is? From her point of view, it makes sense to her.
Yeah.
The reason why she has done it.
I had no choice.
I had no choice but to do this. And this is the reason why. I know that I am going to go to jail. So she has played out the entire scenario in her mind and is all right with it. To the point that now she's explaining to other people what she has done. And I guess for her also hoping that they will find some kind of comprehension in this act.
And, basically she's telling her story. She's saying, I have lost my job. I am not able to feed these children. I'm running into rent arrears. This is the letter that she's writing to her firstborn son. She's saying, this is what I'm going through in life.
If only I had a stable job, I would not have killed your siblings. I have murdered my 4 kids to cut off the generation link from their family. It's hard to bring up a child all knowing what hard life awaits them. I love them so much not to see them suffer. So you can imagine from her point of view, it's that, rather than bring them into this world where things are so difficult, my experience has shown me I don't have a job, so I'm unable to fend for you. You also will be brought into a line of suffering, which I don't want for you and your children. Can you see the intricate manner in which she has played this out in her mind? And to say that, I don't want these children to go into a situation that I'm finding myself in today. Many people would say at this point that it is not justifiable. How difficult the situation is, how bad things have gotten regardless. There are very many other people who are in the same spot who would not have done the same thing. And so this is not a reason why then you would take the life of your children, regardless of how difficult life is. But it seems to be the way out because, guess what? These individuals cannot cry out.
This is not a rational conversation that we can
No,
have.
it isn't. You can't. I mean, where are you going to
We
start
must
from?
mix it with the reality of what she's going through, all right? And also look at it from the reality of her mental state at the point. So we can sit here rationally and say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Talk to your family. Take your children to your family. We can try and rationalize this and try and head back into, no. But the reality is she was living her own reality. And in her reality, this is what she's going through. I've been working, I've had a job, I've been able to fend for my family. I'm looking at it and I know I have 4 children and I have 3 other children somewhere elsewhere. And now I'm not able to feed these 4 children. Now I'm not being able to even pay rent. I cannot afford the basics. Food, shelter, obviously clothing is also out of the window. We've been talking about this. When that bottom of the pyramid is also not being sorted, when that bottom of that hierarchy is not being sorted, we have an issue. This is what she's going. This is her reality. You may also find, if you actually dug deeper, you may find that also there are other factors to consider. Maybe before she has received some kind of backlash from her family, of the way people just talk, and they make you feel that really you are so useless. So you left 3 children, now you have another 4 children. What the hell do you think you're doing? So you know very well that if I started going to them to ask them for help, this is what I expect to hear because I've heard it before. There's that part of shame maybe that could be hindering her from opening up and speaking out about it. However, she was in a WhatsApp group with her family members, and on Saturday in the afternoon at around 2:28 p.m., she posts a photo of her children on the family WhatsApp group. And she asked them, guys, what do you think about the children? And somebody says, oh, they are adorable. I mean, the members of the group say they are adorable. In quick succession, she again posts a comment, take a moment of silence and give final respect to my kids. I don't understand. They're dead. I've killed them. Moments later, she posts her old photo, captioned, Betty the murderer. Pray for the soul to have peace here on earth. The family group's admin quickly removes her from the group because they're like, hey, wait, things are going south here. So
That was her crying for help.
that is it.
Absolutely.
That was her trying to pass a message across to those who are close to her. And that reaction tells you how we deal with such things. You say, this one, the head has gone south.
Nebutoye kwa group.
Yes, this one, ataleta shida.
We're not reaching out to her actually. We're just saying,
No. We ostracize you. Now, what this case here is actually called filicide. And why it is called so? Because now this is a murder. No, not just killing, murder, direct murder of children. And they associate it even with suicide. Sometimes when parents do this, they themselves end up committing suicide. Okay? Now, this one is an interesting twist to it because they, in fact, instead of killing themselves, they end up taking and foreseeing an action for themselves that is almost similar to suicide, meaning their life has come to an end. They don't die, but they're going to be in prison for the rest of their lives.
And there's a misery to which they would exist within.
They'll punish themselves. Those who look at it seriously decide to simply do away with their lives And that's when they commit suicide. Because in their thinking, they do not want their children to live in this terrible world that they feel they themselves can't cope in. So their children will also have to leave the world with them. Then there are those who are psychotic, meaning they are actually not well and haven't been well for some time. And they also say that this sort of filicide, it's often found in men, not women. Men are the ones who tend to do this far, far more than women. But this lady, if you look at the life she has led, right? One of the things that she probably had was something we refer to as self-loathing. First marriage didn't work, she abandoned her children. Mothers do not take abandoning their children well.
It's rare. It's rare that they do.
It's not something that... So you have children in the hope that you can make up for having abandoned those ones.
Yeah.
But that doesn't turn out very well. Because these ones now are in an even more precarious position, and they're even younger.
They're younger.
And you are helpless. And the support system that you think you may have is proving to be a system that seems to blame you. Now, this is worse. She's already blaming herself, by the way. She
without anybody else
she
contributing.
doesn't need your help to add on to it. So the state of mind that is fragile is probably tipped over the edge, because now she figures, actually, where I might get help, there's none. She could have turned to an adult, a brother or relative. So she clearly had relatives. She was in a chat group.
She was in a chat group with,
Yep.
When she turns now to talk to her child, the eldest child she had from the other marriage, she feels maybe it's somebody who's her. She brought her to this earth who may be able to
understand her position.
So she addresses this person.
And yet, it appears that, she called this brother. So after she was removed from the WhatsApp group by the family administrator, blocked out of the WhatsApp group, she realized, okay, so I was trying to pass on a message telling them this, look at these children. What do you guys think about them? Now, I've killed them. She was probably now continuing to share the message. She decided to call this brother and tell the brother, look, this is what I've done. Go to my house. You'll find the key at such and such a place. You'll find the children.
Often...
This is when now she turns to the brother specifically. And the brother goes there and this is what they find. And now the brother is telling the story of how the brother and the sister, this one was maybe the closer one because they shared some things. They had gotten some part-time jobs. It starts telling the story of how she had been at university. She dropped out in the 4th year of university. She was doing BCom. She engaged in part-time jobs prior to the incident that has left the family lost for words. So since then, she's just been in those part-time jobs.
Ask yourself where the father of these 4 children are.
Yep.
If it is more than one, where they are. Okay? The other thing that often leads to this is in a place where somebody feels either they're abandoned or they've been mistreated, the killing of the children is now essentially to punish you.
It's sending a message.
Yes, if the brother couldn't help, the brother may not have known just how dire the situation was. But now, deal with the dead children.
If we look at this a little bit closer, I don't think that the losing of the job and these other things that came as a result of that, not being able to pay rent or fend for these children, is the trigger for what happened here. I think this was a pre-existing condition that she had. I mean, like you talk about, first of all, it would be then deemed as a failure as a mother.
Yeah.
When the first 3 children, she was not able to continue being with them for whatever reason. These other children that she had, and you think about it in your head, I mean, would essentially replace the others. It sounds crazy, but that's actually how it plays out in the mind. That would replace the other three children. This didn't happen. Enter COVID, and this exacerbates an already existing situation. And we have to point ourselves to the reality that there are very many other people in this same situation who are not speaking out about it, who are maybe not acting out this same scenario, but are very close to an edge that is very, very dangerous in society today.
What it starts off with, if you think to the stories we've been told about or what we've read, she was studying in university and studying BCom. BCom, you really need to do very well to qualify to do BCom. Huh?
Yeah.
It's not one of these qualifications where you need to be borderline. Okay? What made her drop out at 4th year? She's about to finish.
Yep.
Now, if you don't finish university, one of the things that becomes a problem is you will see people with whom you are in college and becomes of their lives, and if you compare it with yours, that is of necessity a wonderful opportunity for depression. You can actually go through life. The thing about depression, you may not even know you're depressed.
True.
You don't realize it yourself.
No, you don't. But if you consider yourself a failure, or you wonder, but my life could have been different if only I had done this, and that opportunity to do what you left behind doesn't seem possible, a slippery slope.
And it's a bad one.
Yes, and then you have a marriage which doesn't work. So you see yourself as a failure multiple times.
Let's look at traffic, weather, and then we come back and continue this conversation. It raises various other mini conversations. The kind of support system that we have from the government, especially during this COVID-19, the kind of support system we have in our society, right? Because it also raises that part. At what point, how far do you want to push in judging somebody, and how far do you want to push in understanding and trying to be there to help someone? 21 minutes after 7. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll open up the phone lines for you to join this conversation as well. 0719 012 600.
All right, mostly cloudy conditions this morning in Nairobi at 13 degrees. Chances of those remaining cloudy throughout the day with highs of 24. In Nyeri today, it's partly cloudy at 14. Chances of rain have been forecasted. Highs of 22 and lows of 11. It's clear skies in Nakuru at 13 degrees and sunny conditions all through with highs of 23 and lows of 11. Let's take a look then into Eldoret, where with clear skies at 12 degrees, we'll see highs of 22. In Kisumu this morning, it's clear skies as well. It looks like it's going to be a clear day around the country. Highs of 28 and lows of 18. In Kakamega, it's partly cloudy at 16 degrees. Rain coming in the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 14. Malindi is partly cloudy at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24. In Mombasa, it's sunny conditions, but it'll change later with rain coming later. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, rising slowly to 20 in a short while. Highs of 26 and lows of 18 with wet conditions in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is clear skies this morning at 22 degrees. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 21. In Joburg, it's still a chilly morning at 4 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 1 with clear and sunny conditions through and through. Let's wrap things up in Lagos for now. At 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy. Thunderstorms coming in later with highs of 27 and lows of 23.
Spice
a woman
FM,
in Mombasa
Malindi.
loses her job in these COVID times. She has 4 children. She has 3 children from a previous marriage who are in that previous home. But she's living with her 4 children. She's unable to pay rent, electricity bill. She's not able to feed
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
That's how. Writes a letter to the eldest son.
Mornings done right.
And
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's the kind of situation I found myself in. And I want you to be strong. I want you to take care of your siblings. I have decided to kill these 4 so that I just remove them from that generational curse. I just delink them from that. And I want you to take care of your 2 siblings. She reaches out to her family in a WhatsApp group, tells them, look, guys, this is what I have done. The family's group's administrator, by seeing those messages, immediately removes her from the group just so that they don't know, because they don't know what's happening. She calls a brother and says, this is what I have done. I've killed the children. Please go to the house. You'll find a key at such and such a place, and you'll find the children in the bedroom. And that is exactly how the children are found. It's speaking of very many things. It's starting from this point where we are at now. Everything else before COVID, and then COVID happens, and then life becomes even tougher, and the choices that people are left with and what they're doing. The mental situation and mental conditions of all of us as a country in dealing with COVID-19 and the effects of COVID-19. The support systems that we have in our society, in our communities, in supporting one another during this time. And then, of course, the government. And the government's, what we've been talking about, the social protection. Reaching out to those who actually need help and seeing whether you're giving help to the people who all need help, whatever kind of help. Psychosocial support, financial support.
Eric, look at just a live example. If this system where if you feel that you fall in the category of those who are financially disabled, you register, and indeed some sort of help is forthcoming. I don't think that people fully understand just how that offers not just a ray of hope, but it offers a ray of sunshine. Meaning someone knows, if things really get thick, I lose my job, I need to register with such and such, and upon registering, this is what happens, and from there onward, this is what I can expect. That hope removes that element of helplessness and hopelessness, because it's no longer the case. You have hope, and there's a place you can go to. But here we have a never-ending storyline. So you end up creating a mental disorder where none had existed before. But on the other hand, if you look at literature that refers to this sort of situation, they tell you that often with many such people, it could be mild, it could be
Severe.
overt, it could be severe, but some mental condition or disorder may have existed. And they say sometimes people have split personalities. Schizophrenia may exist. You may be bipolar. Or you may just be in a seriously depressive disorder. But these aren't things that are easily known unless you bring in experts to tell you, no, folks, the situation that we currently have, this is what is bound to bring about. Okay? So to mitigate and to ensure we don't get to the point where people are doing really genuinely crazy things, this is what we need to put in place.
There you go. Because that's what's happening, CT. People are really doing literally crazy things. And that's the thing. Last week, we looked at not less than 3 stories in this direction, whether it was a man killing his wife, whether it was a man raping one child and then coming back a week later and raping a sibling, whether it was another one killing her children and then killing herself. We've looked at stories like this over time. And this is the thing, that more and more, and it is becoming a song that is being sung. More and more.
And those indicators have been there.
Exactly.
Even
and
the justice system has
acceptable.
reported and said, look, we are seeing an increase in the number of cases that are being reported at the police station and those that end up in court. The justice system reported this from the very beginning and said, we are seeing an increase.
We are seeing a trend. And it's
the people who study these things, psychologists and psychiatrists, have said, you expect to see a rise in this. The results of what we are seeing in terms of cases of domestic violence and all are indicative of this something that's happening in the society. So this Department of Social Protection and the others, are they not seeing this information? Is it that we are not able now to address this at that point? Because really that's where the issues are. When you see a woman, like now that case of a woman who was in Mombasa, the one who was cooking stones, right? And that's the point when now the government was reacting, because the community has reacted as raised the issue.
By the time she's cooking the stones, the situation has already gone out the window.
That lady was in the right frame of mind?
Of course not.
You cannot be.
Of course
By
not.
the time you're looking at your children and thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Let me create the illusion that something is actually cooking.
So she was cooking...
to create the illusion that food...
Stone soup.
Yes, stone soup.
To create the illusion that something has been cooked that would be...
Something is cooking.
Right.
Eat this. I've cooked it.
But you
it
see,
would have
by
gone
the
on for a
time that
while
is
before now
happening-
she gets to the next level of,
There you go.
frustration.
But you see, the thing is, by the time you have a physical manifestation of something like that, the rounds that it has played mentally are enough to send somebody to the loony bin.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. By the time she's actually doing it physically, would be indicative of the fact that so much more has happened in her mind by the time she's doing this. Same thing. By the time somebody will strangle her children,
One by one.
as in one, done. Next, done. Can you imagine what has gone on in her mind? She finishes this act and then goes on to tell people who ordinarily would be her support system exactly what she has done. What happens after that? They ostracize her. They remove her. So when she was crying out for help, like you said, which was clear that is what she was doing, many would say, then why didn't she say, please help me? Unfortunately, it doesn't manifest like that. She's telling you what she has done, not because she's lauding this act, but she's basically saying, help me. This is what I have done.
This is what I'm going through.
Then what happens, rather than maybe try and understand what is going on here, what may have taken place, you shut her out even further. Do you really think that this individual then would now say that she has gotten any kind of help? She's going to go in terms of becoming an even further recluse. That is what is going to happen. And I'm going to go back. That because we see this coming out to play in the open, that should point us to the fact that this is happening more and more and more, and something needs to be done. We've been crying out about a welfare state for the longest time, even before COVID, and say that there should be something that should be able to buffer people when it comes to a very dire situation where they're working on. Look at country. I mean, look, there's still a long way to go for certain things to be done, but there are many countries whereby you're paid an unemployment check, for example. You lose your job and you have something that you can bank on before you get to the next.
Even the basic one of food stamps, just knowing that you can get
there's
a
somewhere
meal.
you can sleep tonight, get a hot bath and get a hot meal for as long as you need it. That's enough to tide someone over while they're able to then engage their brain. The problem is that you're not in a place where you're able to think, and because of that you're not able to feed, and then you're rendered completely hopeless. And this is what we're dealing with now. The mental state of this country, the mental state of many countries, unfortunately has not been taken into consideration. And it has not been seen as an issue. It has not been seen as a problem. But I continue to say, until and unless we become so whole that we're able to deal with that, then it's going to be a problem. If we're talking about development, we can shout from here until tomorrow if we want. But the people upon which you're going to be able to develop, the people that you're going to be able to lead, the people that you're going to be able to govern must be of sound mind. When you hear the word disease, it's not disease, some virus has crossed, actually dis-ease. The absence of ease is what causes sickness, is what causes illness. Look at it, study it, wherever. There's something that's imbalanced, there's something somewhere. And if the basic unit is not healthy, the basic unit is not strong, all this other thing that we're talking about is actually futility.
27 minutes to 8, 0719 012 600. 0719 012 600. We turn this conversation now and look at what the government is doing in terms of helping, in terms of just addressing that social protection bit. This is one of those indicators. She has written down and said clearly, I lacked. I was unable. Previously I was able to pay electricity. Now I have a bill of 1,400. Previously I've been able to pay rent. Now I haven't been able to pay rent for 2 months. I know we are coming towards the end of another month. Previously I've been able to feed my children. Now I am unable to. All those people.
Remember the question that comes to my mind even as I'm reading this story.
Take a pause, City. So let's take a look at traffic and then we come and look at that question. Good morning.
All right, let's look at how things may have changed on the roads this morning before we get back into it. The accident at Limuru Road and Red Hill Junction, that's another one this morning, and that's holding back traffic in both directions, unfortunately. We had another accident on Mombasa Road today, and that has affected traffic going all the way far back as Cabanas, and we're going to see the likelihood of that getting a little bit worse today. Traffic is high inbound on Thika Road, getting into the CBD, trying to get then to Forest Road and other parts of the city. So we're looking at it being a bit crazy this morning. Traffic on Langata Road is actually building up. It's not been there for a while, but this is now going to be increasing as the days go by. Anything else that jumps out at you, please don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll be able to share that info this morning, getting into Monday morning business. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
To 8 to raise a question in your mind.
Where is the father of these children? Where? Because it's she did, she looked after, she looked after, she looked
tried.
after, she did. You'd get to the end of your tether. It wasn't for lack of trying.
Yep.
And also, during this COVID time, if you know somebody, say, for instance, has lost their jobs, usually if you're in a chat forum, people will say, you know, so-and-so has lost their job. Surely, don't you want to find out how they're doing? Or was that chat group full of people who are just so consumed with their own issues? So then, what was the chat group for? Apart from just chit-chatting, people tend to inquire into the welfare of those who are members. And if somebody has a problem, people tend to say, look, even if it's aside, what can we do? Because when that burden is shared, it becomes light, and it becomes something that is affordable for every. Maybe I don't understand. I don't understand chat groups. Maybe some chat groups are just for chatting.
No, there's also the possibility, CT, that this is it's a recurrent issue, not just with this one particular member of the group, but with all members of the group, right? So where you find that yes, we live in a life where we've been doing odd jobs. Somebody else is also the brother is also doing odd jobs. Other members of the group are doing this and the other. So they're constantly just living, getting by on a daily basis. They know themselves. They know this is how we do. All right. So you get to a point where maybe when somebody gets to a point and they require support, they ask for support. They're like, hey, you guys, my child so and so has fallen sick and I don't have money. Can you guys send me some money? And that's when now people come together.
Where in Naivasha did this lady live?
Near the Naivasha High School.
You know, if you know Naivasha, you will know that areas around, say, Karagita and so forth, those aren't wealthy people. Okay? This food aid that we've been reading and hearing about.
The point is actually that whole section between Karagita going up, there are a number of things. There's of course there's the wealthy side, the people who own pieces of land and they've built their homes and they've maybe rented out their houses to flower farm managers. There are flower farm workers, there are flower farm managers, and there are flower farm workers as well who have lost their jobs. We know the flower industry
and many of those tenants whom you speak of are flower farm workers,
right? And everybody else in that whole ecosystem doing business, the local NGOs there. It's just like any other place. But yes, you raise a point. You know very well from census data, this particular area comprises of this kind of people with this kind of incomes, this kind of livelihoods.
It's known. You have details.
The local MCA knows their people. The local MP knows their people. The local governor knows their people. They've campaigned there. The local leadership knows who needs help. The coordination of all these things, I take it back to a State Department for Social Protection, because that is what social protection is all about. You've got the data. How now do you create a structure that works both ways?
This ministry
thing that you're saying of going to register yourself. I need help. Go and register. And then also let that be a coordination point for any other organization, like well-wishers, like Charotise, who was here, and she's been contributing and rallying people to support people in need. If you had that kind of information, a database clear, where people have registered, where a chief has come and actually the chief is the one who's verified the information, it's very clear, or local social worker, because there are social workers in every county of this republic who report directly to that Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. They are there. If you have that database, it would be very easy to coordinate and say, in this particular ward, we have X number of families that are in need. And these are their needs. In this particular
and those families
ward,
are known, by the way.
And they're known.
They're known.
And it's a local community. So even if you're contributing from whatever part of the world you're contributing to help people, you know very well that this will go to Karagita ward.
And also some of those needs have to be brought to the attention of some, because Naivasha can't be very different from Nairobi. There must be people who are giving and people who have decided to ensure that they help others who are in need.
Yes.
But sometimes it has to be brought to the attention. Otherwise, they wouldn't know.
They will not know.
Yes.
They will not know.
You got to ask
Who
the
is
question.
our CS for this ministry?
The CS for the Ministry of
Labour and...
Chelugui. He was in water, remember? The PS is Nelson Marwa.
Okay.
An administrator. He knows. In terms of administratively, by the way.
No, he's a long-standing administrator.
Nelson Marwa would know. Create a structure, it would go all the way down.
No, that man
and
has
it
been
will
in
bring
the system
information
for the longest possible
up and
time.
down.
He
knows very well.
Rose up the ranks.
Yep.
DO, the works.
All
he
the way
knows.
to county commissioner and regional commissioner.
He knows.
There's got to be, when we think about the structure that you're talking about, there's got to be something then that must be permanent. It has also, because look, these situations are going to arise. COVID will come to an end. These situations will still come about.
Yep.
There will be something else that will come up whereby somebody is not able to fend for themselves. Their needs will not be met. Their children cannot go to school. Let's forget about school. Their children will not be fed. And they will have nowhere to live because of the fact that they lost a livelihood because of one reason or the other. It will come up. Now, it should not be that the story that is told is that lives of children are taken because a parent or parents are unable to fend for them. It should not be. Whichever way you want to look at it. So if we have a ministry, because you're asking which state department, which ministry, it shouldn't be that we should have social workers milling about the country, sorting out one issue or another.
Yep.
It should be that they should form part of a system that should always be in existence. That so when you ask the question that this woman was asking, and that's the cry of very many people, what do I do? There should be a place that you should be able to go to. We're not saying that these people are going to promise you a job and you have a job tomorrow. But they're saying that what they do is that they give you some hope.
Yes, there's some level
so
of
that
hope.
you can live till tomorrow, so that your children can eat today, so that we don't have these decisions being made. That's the thing. These decisions that are being made are on the rise, and there are too many. There are too many young lives that are being lost. There are too many decisions that are being made. This woman, whether we want to look at it in one, whether she had a mental disorder, whether she had incapability, whatever, it shouldn't be jail that she should go to as a result of having taken her children's lives. It should have been that there should be something that she should have been able to depend on to feed her children for a month, to take care of her rent situation for a month while she was able to look for and get something else, or while suggestions were being made of where she could then go and work. We have options, guys, regardless of what it is. I keep getting the name wrong. Kazi
Mtaani.
Exactly. There are options. There are things that could be done.
But Kazi
there could be something that you could be able to do.
Kazi
But now,
Mtaani
if you're not
targets
in the
young
right,
people.
it's okay. I'm
This
saying it
lady,
as an option.
By any stretch of your imagination,
She was 42, so she
Right.
does not qualify.
It's
for
okay,
that.
but I'm using that as an example,
example, yes.
of things that are available, having been provided, even if it's by government, of work that you can do to earn even the bare minimum while you're able to get yourself back. And that is what a welfare system is. That is exactly what a welfare system is. And I think that is the direction in which you should be looking, because there are too many people who are making these decisions.
You know,
There are too many.
I feel we're looking in the wrong direction. The people who actually have mental problems are those in leadership. They're the ones who need help. Because
So they need social welfare.
No, they need mental health. It's rectification. You know why? If you run a country and you're in charge, You're in charge, say, of the children's department,
Yeah.
or you're in charge of, say, budgeting, because we'll be told that department never really gets enough money to do anything. It's a budgeting issue. They essentially, they're given sticks and stones to run that department.
Yep.
Okay? Now, we know our country and we know the situation of the citizenry. And if someone lives in this country and is in a position of authority and does not seem to take into consideration the dire situation that many of our citizens are in, something is wrong with you. Something is genuinely wrong with you.
It's true. And it's the way we've been saying here. The government does not know how to work for its people.
Because they haven't.
It does
done
not
before.
know how to help its people.
Because they've not done it.
You see, we're getting to a point where they're seeing the numbers are increasing in terms of taking care of people of COVID. And they're saying, now you guys sort yourselves out. You get COVID deal at home. Right? Without a proper structure of this is how we are going to help you when you're
Actually,
at
it's
home.
not even proper, Eric. What structure is there?
Zero structure. The only thing that they're saying, we have come up with protocols, you shall treat yourself at home. Nothing about the support that these people need when they're at home. Nothing. This is like when Jiro Ikonyo keeps saying, Kenyans are used to living in spite of and despite the government. The government is somewhere there, is a neighbor. But you do your things, and then the government comes and tells you, by the way, tomorrow I need you to face this direction. And you're like, I face this direction? Okay. I face the direction, I continue doing what I was doing anyway. It's not that the government is coming to help me in terms of facing that direction and I'll get something else in return. Nothing. So this is the same government that we are saying has been completely silent. This is the same government that is unable to come up with those programs that would be able to help. Because with the right programs, the local community in Naivasha could have come to the aid of this lady. Not necessarily that the government would. If you're fearing that they don't have money or that they're not able to then go and give 1,000 shillings to everybody in the country, the local community in Naivasha, if they had known, they would have been able to come to the aid of this person.
And the only way they could know something like that is if there was a structure set up whereby this is where I can go. Even if it is not government bringing their money, this is where I can go. And so community is aware of the fact that, again, there's somebody who needs our help, guys. How can we rally around this to bring some kind of help? But if it's just kind of, by virtue of the fact that we were together last Friday, that's how you know that so-and-so is suffering, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's too much of an issue for it to be ignored anymore. And yes, anybody who can look at a situation like this and turn a blind eye, I would agree, is the person with a problem.
That's the one. Calling in, opening up the phone line 0719-012-600. Calling in from Nyamira is Wilberforce. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing, Wilberforce?
I'm fine. I'm not very fond of such stories.
Yep.
And today, let me first speak as a leader of a disability movement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a person with a disability. I have got the privilege of working with the county government of Nyamira.
Mm-hmm.
What we are seeing on the paper today is one of the many cases that go unreported.
Yep.
I'll tell you that for free because I'm a stakeholder and I know what it means. As one of you put it rightly, if there are people who are handicapped, are the people in the leadership. And not only handicapped, but mentally challenged. I'm ready to take responsibility for my own sentiments.
No, we support you. We'll take responsibility with you.
Why, sir, Eric? Today, the government is saying, since COVID came into Kenya, remember when that guy from JKIA was being arrested, after he made a photo circulate online of a plane that had landed from China, and he was just raising alarm that if this is the trend, then we are headed to the wrong direction.
Yep.
What happened to that
guy? It was at a time when we had been told that all flights had been stopped.
Yes. What the best to be done for such a guy was to be appreciated. Was he appreciated? He was apprehended instead.
Yep.
Are these people normal? Now, remember the time when Mutahi Kawe was firing Lutomia from Kemri for not providing a statement in time? Is it about a statement or about action? Today, the government is talking about releasing money for vulnerable groups, where I solely belong, groups I lead. We were here filling forms for 400 people from my county.
Mm-hmm.
They want 400 people. That's 100 people from one constituency. Nyamira has got 4 constituencies. Then 1 month down the line, nothing is being spoken about such.
Wilberforce, can I interrupt you there? Just a quick question for you. These forms that you were filling, in essence, what was it for?
They are saying they have put aside some 2,000 per person for the next 3 months for the very vulnerable persons with disabilities. Yeah.
Have you gotten any of the money so far?
Not even communication.
Why were they putting a cap? So they were saying that you need to only identify 100 per constituency.
Yes.
Why?
We have never understood what happened.
How do you select who is not captured in this?
In the
this
100.
Data?
This is where the problem.
Or is it first come first serve?
No. They are when we talk about severe disability, madam, we've got people like of cerebral palsy.
Yep.
Like I'm blind. Yes, they don't want me to use the word blind, but I'm blind. That's what I am. I may not get an opportunity.
You have visual impairment, Wilberforce.
Sir, let's stop coloring, and we color and people are dying. Why should we look for nice words to call? I'm the one who is blind, Eric. What's wrong with you? See where?
Go ahead.
Now, I cannot be given priority when I'm competing with a person of cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy. True.
Yes.
Is
so
there,
then, I've gone to school.
But now that we are still there on that point,
yes.
Is there a clear definition of what severe disability is? Because we have actually spoken to somebody. She called us.
Yes.
She's a teacher in somewhere in Kiambu County, and she was raising the issue, saying when it comes to severe disability, there are some people who are forgotten in terms of like the people with cerebral palsy and others who are not considered, in fact, even to be having a disability.
The problem, Eric, is the mental problem we're talking about. When they give the chiefs and the Department of Social Protection at the county levels to come down and nominate, they don't use the stakeholders like the DPO, the Disability Persons Organizations, who have got these memberships. So what will the chief do? Today, come to Nyamira, Eric, and I'll show you somebody who misses a single finger, and they are earning the cash transfer, social protection, whatever.
Those are disabled.
Why? Because they are simply because the chief knows them, simply because the village elder knows you, simply because you have got some links.
Yeah.
Today, I know of teachers whose children are getting bursaries at the expense of children for persons with disabilities and others. So maybe as I conclude, Eric, if there's anyone online, I don't want to be so too much online. Eric, another point is this idea of not being listened to. I happen to be a counselor again. I do psychological counseling. Sometimes just want somebody to listen to you, not necessarily give you an answer to your question. Yes. But just get a shoulder to lean on. And when I'm texting you and you don't respond to my SMS, even by the word okay, or by chance I realize you have put off your phone, then I'll resolve. You give my brain now will explode.
Right.
Then the problem is now the government is arresting this lady. You know, it is the same problem like somebody has been gotten during the curfew outside. This is a criminal. He should be taken to court to be judged, right? Why was it to be taken to quarantine? Na ni sheria amevunja. These guys are mentally handicapped, sir. These guys are mentally handicapped, and I can repeat that as many times as possible. Thank you.
The problem is at the top. Thank you very much, Wilberforce. Have a good day in Nyamira.
Thank you.
Problem is, let's just flip it. So the people that need our serious support are our leaders. Because there's something that they ought to be, it's clear to everybody. This is what you ought to be doing. We have a government structure, you have a state department for social protection, and you hear what is happening on the ground. You have social protection officers in every county, and you hear what's happening on the ground. You have those that even work in the social protection department. They'll tell you these are the challenges that we go through. I mean, this is what we want to put together as structure. But then when it goes up, it's fought back.
You know, when you're talking about people who should actually be arrested, people who are in that chain, that structure of social protection, people who belong to the child department, people who are actually charged with the mandate of looking up the vulnerable in our society and who are paid to do so, they're the ones who go and arrest first. Because this woman's children are dead because of the failure of them not doing what they're supposed to do.
True.
And as
these children would not be dead if somebody had done their job.
No. There ought to have been some place where they could have sought refuge. And there are people who are paid to do precisely this. That's what they earn a salary for. That's the lot of people who should have been arrested. And then it goes up. Arrest the PS, arrest the CS, and tell them to actually explain to us how it is that they run a ministry and these things are happening under their watch.
They run a ministry for which the problems that we are seeing has been established to take care of.
Yep.
It is this exact thing that this ministry is in existence.
They don't have
in
another
the first
job.
place.
They're not supposed to look after agriculture. That's what they're doing. Not even health.
Or education, no. Just make sure, essentially, that people are okay. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And then we have these issues rising every day. Look at it, guys. I just did it now. There hasn't been a week since the second week of January 2020 that there has not been a story of somebody who, this is before COVID, so let's not even give COVID the responsibility for this thing. This is before COVID. There hasn't been a week since the 8th of January that stories of a parent taking the life of their child because of financial problems has not been reported in this country. How is that for a statistic? For us to understand that this thing is a little bit more serious than we may have put attention to before.
We're looking at the consequences and not the cause. The cause are these people whom our taxes pay salaries for to ensure that
these things are taken care of.
If their incapacity begins with their mind, we have facilities that take care of these things, okay? They should be given brief scholarships to these facilities so that we can determine. And thereafter, if we feel that they are competent, then maybe they should be reassigned to other places.
Yeah.
And people who can actually ensure that the social welfare of our citizenry is taken care of are given those jobs. You can't have... How many times have we discussed this matter here? We keep bringing it up. And we still have the same people
in the same position.
And even if they've changed, the same thing is still happening. Something is absolutely wrong. It went awry, it went left, it went south, it went in direction that describes wrong a long time ago. So, if they want people to arrest, let them start there.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on this, city. I agree with you wholeheartedly. This woman needs to be taken to a place where she gets help, but the people who should be arrested start from that social protection side.
Yes.
Who is it that dropped the ball? Who is it that could have come to the aid of this woman? Who is it that could have offered an open door so that this woman could have gone and said, look, this is what is happening in my life.
I need some help now.
I need help. I have these 4 children between 8 and 2. These young children. I am not able to feed them. I am not able to clothe them. I am not able to put a roof over their head.
I can't.
This is the end of the
tried,
month.
but this is it.
This is the end of June. I know my landlord is coming to ask for rent. I need
I can't
help,
pay that rent.
and I can't pay.
My power is about to be
Yes.
switched off. I don't even have it to
Probably
use
was
anymore.
switched off.
And
Right.
here we are. We're talking about, this is a woman who's going to be charged with murder or manslaughter or whatever you want to call it. Really?
And she's got to twist an explanation so far gone in her mind to get other children to understand the reason why she did this.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that you bring yourself again after that to have to explain to another child,
I will be in jail for the rest of my life,
another
my
child,
son,
that this is the reason why you did
because
this? It's got to do a lot more than pull on people's heartstrings this morning. It's got to get us to think now and say, you know what? The decisions that we make, these are the consequences of the decisions that we make.
This one you don't waste energy feeling
No,
sad.
no, not pulling on heartstrings at
you
all.
look
Sound
with
mind
with
thinking.
clarity.
Get
Clear. Sound mind thinking. It's not
Get
about crying or
annoyed.
emotions. This is it. When I tell you people are not taking you seriously, this is it. You want proof that your leaders are not taking you seriously? People who've been put in positions of responsibility to get something done and not taking you, for which they should be protecting, seriously? This is it. Right here. Understand? Clear as day.
Coming to the top of the hour, Mohammed, I can see you are calling from Malindi. We'll pick your call after we take a look at traffic. City, today's proverb.
When you befriend a chief, remember that he sits on a rope. I'm going to add tightrope.
Tightrope.
Precarious.
Not going to last.
No.
Throw another adjective.
0719-012-600. Let's push this conversation and ask, who bears responsibility for this and what should we do? How should we ensure they face justice over this? Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
All right, let's look at the situation on the roads. Thika Road is a total mess this morning. Sorry. Inbound and outbound today for some reason. I don't know if people are going. It is Monday after all, but okay. Everybody seems to be coming into the city. And hopefully that will clear up in a short while. But then right around the underpass is where we have some issues today. There's a minor accident. This is number 3 for this morning. And it's right in the CBD. So we're blocking one lane trying to get onto Uhuru Highway. And that affects traffic coming from Langata Road. It affects traffic coming from Uhuru Highway on the westland side. It affects traffic coming from Nyayo Stadium roundabout. So that's what you have to look forward to when you get there. Okay. And then on the Donholm roundabout, a bus has overturned. We're asking you to approach with caution. It seems that it's a manic Monday, guys, because everything seems to be happening in whatever direction you're looking at it. So here's a word of caution. Wherever you are going, please be careful because you're likely to bump into some drama. Spice FMKE, let us know what you see. The southern and eastern bypasses, though, this morning are not crazy just yet. Everything else seems to be moving along smoothly.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have
Good morning and thank you very much for tuning in to the
researcher,
This is
academic,
Kenya's biggest
seasoned
conversation in the
political
room.
observer,
Muga,
a fountain of
very
wisdom
flattered.
in these
We are
politically uncertain
annoyed.
times.
All right, so let me just say, we're pissed off. We're pissed off because there's a woman in Naivasha who killed her 4 children and wrote a note to her elder son, who is part of 3 children, who she had gotten in a previous marriage and left them in that other home. She killed these 4 children. And she has explained herself to the firstborn son and says, look, I killed your siblings because I could not fend for them. I killed your siblings because I was unable to give them food. I was unable to give them shelter. I was unable to take care of them. And I simply could not continue doing this. She reached out to her family. She reached out to her brother. She told the brother exactly what she has done. She's been arrested. She's in custody. And we're saying, look, this is an indication of something. Yes, she has done this, but where was the state when this was happening? What exactly could have happened? 0719-012-600. Mohammed calling in from Malindi. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to ask, how do we involve the church leaders or mosque leaders in this issue to solve it? I mean,
How do we involve the religious leaders?
yes.
What do you think?
I have no idea, but I think what is happening now is really immoral.
Yeah.
Let me
That's why
ask
I'm
a
bringing-
question, my brother. In the time that you've been alive on this planet, How often have you seen church leaders coming out, manifesting their support when we have a famine, when you have, now we have COVID, okay?
Yes.
When you have situations where there's dire need, how often do you see
religious leaders?
because all these religions have a congregation where they sort of like come together. It's a circle, it's a group. The evangelicals have one, God knows who has one. When have you heard them coming up with solutions? Not telling the government to allow them to open their churches, no, but saying this, we as a church, this is what we've come up with to help ABCD. How often do you hear this happening?
Not at all.
Okay, so that being the case, and if it is, it's very quiet. Maybe they don't want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. But that being the case, what do you think is going to change that's suddenly going to make them sort of like come out and show that they actually take an active part in these social problems that we seem to have?
I think it is the government who is supposed to do that, the link between the church and the government.
No, the church claim that they have a moral duty to ensure that the human beings within their sphere are looked after spiritually and physically.
I think I want to disagree with you, CT and Mohammed. Religious organizations have structures or have ways of supporting their congregation. For example, Mohammed, I assume you're a Muslim.
Yes.
And we know, for example, the Muslim faith and the Muslim structures that come to the aid of those that are in need. It comes all the way from the Quran, looking at the time, for example, of Ramadan and how you ensure that everybody is participating by ensuring that everybody is able to eat at the end of the day, right? So there are those structures in place. If you look through your religious organization, you'll find places where the Muslim congregation has come together to help those that are needy in society. Similar things happen even in churches, right? So, but you know, every church has its own structures. The Catholics have their own, the Anglicans, the Evangelicals, they have their own structures that are other small churches do it ad hoc. But they're just members of our community. The issue is, at the government level, is there a structure into which these organizations can plug in? So that you know.
No idea.
Yeah, and that's the question that we are asking this morning. We don't know. Maybe they have, but we don't know. We don't see it happening. We don't see it happening in Naivasha, where we see a woman, 42-year-old woman, kills her 4 children and confesses and says, I have reached the end of my tether.
Okay.
Mohammed, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. Have a good day in Malindi.
Same to you. Thank you. Bye.
0719-012-600. That's the number to call and participate in this conversation. Look, we've said it before. We have a government. We have a constitution. In fact, the supreme law of the land. Just from the preamble, I'm going to read the preamble of our constitution. We, the people of Kenya, of course, you know now those other words, acknowledging, honoring, proud, respectful, committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the individual, the family, communities, and the region. All right? So we are committing to nurturing and protecting. And that's why we are adopting and enacting and giving to ourselves this constitution, to ourselves and to our future generations. Already we have said we want to ensure that there's well-being of our society, our communities, our family. Then you go to the Bill of Rights, which is very explicit on the kind of rights and freedoms that each one of us ought to get. And those shall come from our government, our state. Then you go into seeing a structure of government that's been created by the president, who says, all right, I'm going to have a Ministry of Labor and Social Services. I'm going to have a clear State Department of Social Protection. And this one is headed by a PS, goes all the way down, and this is the job that they have to do. Protect the society, the vulnerable in the society. You have something like this happening in Naivasha, and nobody knew about it, and now we are arresting the woman and taking her to jail and trying to look at, surely, what kind of problem does she have? Ni nini mbaya na huyu? Unauaje watoto? What kind of person are you? Really? That's what we're saying that we are. Solomon in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Solomon.
The church does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the offerings are coming, that's their business between us and the pastors and the clergy. Many a times during this pandemic, I've tried to watch if they've helped. Even his distribution of for example, the mask, the sanitizers, but nothing. That's my comment for the day.
Okay, Solomon.
It can be argued that they help members of their congregation.
Yep.
So you wouldn't know unless you're a member of that congregation. But it is impossible for you to call yourself a Christian if you're not concerned about your neighbor. You should call yourself something else. Yes.
So it comes to the individual.
Actually, it's the individuals that make the group.
Yep.
That is the thinking.
And I completely agree with you. But this individual that makes the group and all need a structure.
No,
we are not going to create for ourselves a structure.
You know, Eric, here we're not going
because
to
we keep doing this whole
we're
as
not going to disagree.
How long will we be doing Harambe?
No.
We do.
You and I are not going to disagree on this one because there is someone who even that Christian pays taxes to and whose job it is to ensure that there is some social protection for the vulnerable in our midst. I agree. Yes.
And unfortunately, look, this coming together, I'm just going to call it Ujamaa because that's what it is essentially. The people who are tasked with the responsibility to set up such structures realize that people are going to come together. So even if you don't do your job, they know at the end of the day, Kenyans are going to take care of themselves. So it's okay. Something will sort itself out. But it has got to get to the point where people say, you know what, it has got to stop. It has got to stop. Yes, we're going to care for our fellow man, but there must be a structure within which we're going to operate. And unless and until that is done, it is going to remain the same. So this is what I'm going to say. Prepare for it to remain the same for as long as you are ready to stay silent and not do anything about it. Prepare for the long road ahead where we're going to continue to hear such stories. As morbid as I'm going to sound, prepare where we'll continue to see such things. People are not going to be able to meet their needs. People are going to go hungry. People are going to take the decision to take the lives of their children because they cannot make it. Until and unless such structures are put in place, until you're demanding such decisions to be made, prepare for more bad news like this on a Monday morning. Prepare for more stories across the country where things like this continue to happen. Until you decide to make a decision, prepare for it because it's going to come and it's going to keep coming and the numbers are going to increase.
Bill of Rights. Okay? We have a Bill of Rights and we have, the state is mandated to actually ensure that they provide and secure these rights to every person, rights and fundamental freedoms, right to life, equality and freedom from discrimination, human dignity. Every person has inherent dignity and the right to have that dignity respected and protected. When somebody is not able to eat and fend for themselves because of the job that they have lost, what does that fall? Freedom and security of the person. Freedom of conscience, religion, belief, and opinion. That's okay. Expression, and also the freedoms of media and access to information. And ensuring that the state does what it's supposed to do to protect the citizens of the Republic of Kenya.
That's what that document has been put in place to do, right?
It's a whole document. And also given life by acts of parliament.
They've put it to life, right? Breathe life into it, essentially.
With statute.
So that if you have that office and in case you lack clarity as to what you should do,
you can refer to
a
this
reference point. It's for you. You don't have to create another one. It's already there. Now, this, unfortunately, speaks volumes about the sort of people. Well, we know what our leaders are like, but it also speaks volumes about the sort of people that we have become.
Yeah.
Because if somebody in your midst, in your circles, in your chat group, somebody, even from the conversation, you can tell someone's conversation has gone a little off. Can somebody check and find out
what's going on here?
What's going on?
There must be a problem
in their lives. But I guess also, for many people, chat groups are just entertainment, really.
No. There's also, you must not forget, CT, that not everybody is able to detect. Right? We have lived in a society that gets to a point where you are not able to detect those things.
Why?
If somebody
because
says
of
I've
who you are.
murdered my children,
No. Before they say I've
No,
murdered
Okay.
my children.
no.
Okay.
There's some
We're talking
issues.
about conversations.
Those two
and-
triggers in
No
a
more
conversation.
conversations.
Those triggers in a conversation. Me nimechoka.
okay.
Or this COVID, man, some of
Okay.
us, it's
So you
driving
wouldn't
us
know
to the
how
ground.
bad it
So you
is.
wouldn't really be able to pick out that and say, wait a minute, there's something
But
this
why?
person is
Why?
saying.
You know, this one you don't need to go to school to learn this.
It's not going to school. It's just about how we socialize.
Perception.
It's
Yeah.
and also being made aware to be alert to some things.
It's perception.
I think we are more alert to ourselves and less alert to what others around us.
Yep.
That's precisely right, because we've had also many stories of suicide that took place last year, whereby people would have a normal conversation. A guy is having a conversation with his buddies, right? And he would say, well, you know, man, these debts that I have are just too many, but I have to find a way to figure it out. And his friends sat in his company, you know, thought like, okay, it's a normal thing that we all go through,
Yeah,
right?
you
The
don't-
next weekend, this man was dead. He killed himself. And he had been crying out, but it wasn't the thing. So I do agree to an extent that in terms of perception, people may not take it to be something serious. You would think it's just a chat with the buddies.
We haven't gotten to a point where our
We
society
don't
actually.
have we lost it?
I think
we've lost
I
it.
think we've lost it.
We're at that point where you're able to actually detect and see the way this person is behaving. Just from their behavior, there's something off. And then having the courage and the will to follow up and find out what's up. And that person feeling that, yes, you're coming because you want to support, not you're coming because you want to judge them. So they open up more and they tell you exactly what's up. That whole thing in our society missing.
It's gone.
Let's pick these calls. Many of the calls coming in. Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good
How are
morning,
you,
Justice.
Yeah, it's really a sad morning, isn't it?
It is.
It is. And remember a couple of weeks, is it a couple of a month, there was this lady who was boiling stones
Yes.
for their children. At the higher level, if you look at it, these things are similar. It's only that one took a more tragic turn than the other.
Yep.
If the media had not highlighted that lady boiling stones for the children, take it a week down, what could have happened? Probably the same scenario.
Yep.
I want to say this, that we have been making these statements over and over again. Our social protection system is atrocious. It's very good on policy, but the implementers on the ground, we wonder whether they even understand what they're supposed to be doing. There is like in the course of this COVID-19 pandemic, we have had very little from the Department of Social Services, where the social protection structure is domiciled.
Yeah.
Even the actors who have been coming in, the Rotarians, the NGOs, even the Cherotich you had there the other day, if you listen to their conversations, there is absence of coordinated facilitation of the social protection, and actually we cannot even figure out what our policy actually says for the common person down on the ground. Now, as for the religious people, policy, we cannot legislate morality.
No.
Their failures, they will continue talking about them. We can never legislate them. So they hide behind the voluntarism. They were spiritually taking care of this. But as a nation, if we come back to the issue of policy, really, maybe we need to talk out to what are some of the legal steps we can take to compel our government to become more socially responsive.
That's exactly.
Because you look at that lady, honestly, we can be talking about the killing, but in some cases, remember, in some cultures, I remember back we had something called the Masada Protocol, where the Israelites were thinking, if I can't, rather than suffer, let me go with my enemies, right?
Yep.
That's one. Then he changed to the Masada. The Masada Protocol is where, if I have to go, I'll go with my problems, isn't it? Something like that.
Yep.
So in other words, to this woman, if you look at her psychosocial status at that point, she's looking at this thing as an act of mercy for the children. Because how could I let them back, and how can I let them?
I brought them into this world, I am not able to fend for them,
and I cannot let them suffer.
Yeah.
At the bottom of it is the failure of our system to care for the most vulnerable at the most vulnerable point. And ironically, look at those guys who are going to look at masks the other day at the factory. The money was raised as an emergency response, not a procurement response, for God's sake.
Exactly.
It was supposed to be emergency response, looking out, sending out chiefs, elders, who is dying, who is hungry. Can we send some money there? But instead, they're going
masks.
to visit factories factories, you wonder whether they had a quality assurance person with them to assure the quality of the masks.
Right.
Yeah. Just as thank you. Your point made. Let me pick other calls as well.
Please, and I appreciate you guys what you have been talking about. It's an important subject. Please amplify the voices. Maybe one day somebody will hear.
Thank you so much, Justice.
Okay.
Mwalimu Irongo Amos in Kisii. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
We're well. Are you?
I'm fine, but obviously disturbed by what we're watching and what we are listening to.
Yeah.
It is as if now the Social Protection Department has gone to sleep and left this work to the police to wait until children are murdered by desperate mothers so that they can come and say, okay, we have arrested that lady, we shall take her to jail.
Yeah.
Now, my contribution is very short. In fact, it appears as if, as Mohammed, who has just left, has said, we do not exactly understand what our policy concerning social protection is. Now, I have this observation that should be proactive. In fact, these guys are sleeping in the offices, drawing salaries and taking bribes. Because I accompanied a friend of mine to the Social Protection Department one day.
Yeah.
And the guy had a problem with the wife. So the wife had gone there and reported, obviously, that you see to Mekosana and fees should be paid, school fees. Then this guy is sent us to some inner office, and then I remember the gentleman there who is in charge told us, okay, mkitaka hii mambo yenu niimalize, msiwekewe mambo mengi ya kulipa, should give us this and this, toa kitu, and then I will write this thing in your favor. Now you see, this guy is not even solving the problem because I thought they were trained to sit down, listen, and decide which is the best way to where do we to put the children, how do we have the fees paid, where will the children be comfortable. Now, if I may finish, I would say the president and his cabinet should now sit down. It's a matter of urgency, and say, let us have a situation where we have structures that people who are charged with this responsibility of social protection get reports from the villages. There are children somewhere suffering, there is a mother somewhere suffering, there is a father somewhere being battered, and so on, so that they can run and rescue these people. And now this one takes me to where you people are saying, let us also have refugee places where these people can be taken. You don't wait until somebody has desperately murdered the children, alafu mnaanza kutuambia eti we have arrested the lady, she will be taken to court.
True.
So I think the president himself should wake up his cabinet from sleep so that these people can in fact, it's better it is all disbanded to an kingine which is proactive and taking reports from the villages as it were.
I do agree with that.
Irongo, thank you very much for your call this morning. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather. This conversation continues. We want you to participate in it. 0719-012-600. In case you did not know, we have a national social protection policy. I'll be giving you some highlights of that social protection policy after we come out of this break. 0719-012-600. It's an annoying morning, but yes, let's get mad, let's get angry, let's get up to here, because we must demand action from our government. Good morning.
Right, let's look at how it may have changed this morning. And clouding over in Nairobi this morning, mostly cloudy conditions at 15. We'll see a high of 24 today, and those conditions will remain more or less the same. It's partly cloudy at 16 in Nyeri. 22 degrees is what we'll see as the high today. And in Nakuru, where clear skies have been overtaken by a few cloudy conditions, we'll see a high of 23 today. And in Eldoret, clear skies at 14 degrees, highs of 22. Kisumu is likely to be partly cloudy through most of the day, currently 20 degrees degrees. We'll see highs of 28. Kakamega is partly cloudy this morning at 18 degrees and is going into an afternoon of rains with highs of 25. All right, in Malindi, it's mostly sunny. That's going to change a little bit. It's partly cloudy conditions, highs of 29. In Mombasa, it's sunny conditions at 25 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Taking a look then outwards, in Kampala, partly cloudy at 22 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 with thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees is partly cloudy. It will be foggy conditions in the afternoon with highs of 32 and lows of 22. In Joburg, clear skies, mostly sunny conditions at 4 degrees, highs of 17 and coming down to a chilly low of 1. We'll wrap things up in Lagos for now, where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees and touted to be a thunderstormy afternoon with highs of 27 and lows of 23.
So, I'm going to read an excerpt from the executive summary of the Kenya National Social Protection Policy.
You know what a policy means, right?
Okay? Yeah. The Constitution emphasizes the direct application of international agreements ratified by Kenya, and all those things are there. And also, it talks about the objectives of this. In the purpose of this policy, social protection is defined as policies and actions, including legislative measures that enhance the capacity of and the opportunities for the poor and the vulnerable to improve and sustain their lives, livelihoods, and welfare, that enable income earners and their dependents to maintain a reasonable level of income through decent work, and that ensure access to affordable healthcare, social security, and social assistance. It's covered. Everybody.
Okay, so it's in law, like you said before.
Yes.
And it's interesting that this has already been demarcated. It's been set out. It's closely linked to other social protection rights, including the right to healthcare, human dignity.
Yep.
Reasonable working conditions.
Yep.
And access to justice.
Yep.
To observe, respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights. Segueing back to the Bill of Rights.
Article 43 of the Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights, where it talks about these very basic things that you had mentioned. So you see, at some point, because we were asking the question before, that did we lose this along the way, or are we just ignoring it as of today? So somewhere in the past, it was realized as something so important that it was necessary then to put in law. Whether it was because you buddied up with other countries and because it was international, we said, we're all doing it at the same time. And regardless,
it's not a distant past, huh?
You decided.
This policy is a 2011 policy.
Right.
After the promulgation of a new
the Constitution.
So
you realize the importance even after this.
Oh, yes. It's coming to give life to the Article 43 of the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, because it understands that this article guarantees those rights. Kenyans, their economic, social, and cultural rights. It asserts the right for every person to social security and binds the state to provide appropriate social security to persons who are unable to support themselves and their dependents. Binds the state.
Now, it could...
The state is bound by the Constitution.
It's not a
suggestion. So that is why it would seem as if, okay, it's a bunch of folks annoyed on a Monday morning, but this is actually something that is in law that these stories that we are seeing, when now it would be easy to arrest a woman, guess what? The state, so get a little bit more pissed off, because the state should have set something up.
The state has
that
failed
would
us.
have saved these 4 children from losing their lives, and then having an attitude, and
other
other children who have lost their lives
in circumstances
and
such as this one.
people who are planning to take the lives of their children because they cannot provide.
Yep.
The state should have set up something to protect, and it did not happen. So we're not talking about something that we're reaching here. We're not reaching. We're saying this is something that should have been done. Not for 3-4 Kenyans somewhere in an urban center. all Kenyans.
You know, what the state has done, and this is one of those areas where now we keep having back and forth conversations, is that it says this right, some of these rights are progressive rights. Okay? It's not that an absolute right that should have been provided immediately. It's progressive. However, looking back for the last 10 years, progressively, what have we done to try and achieve this? What have we done to try and ensure that we provide social safety nets for the vulnerable in our society? The vulnerable in our society are defined in various different ways. This particular woman, the 42-year-old woman in Naivasha who killed her 4 children, is a vulnerable in our society. Does the state have measures of identifying them and picking them out? And measures of seeing, okay, so once you come, how can we support you and go with you? Does the state have measures of going to Mombasa and finding this particular woman who was cooking stones for her children? After people, well-wishers, went and gave her food, has the state been there to see how can we support you going forward? Has the state visited this woman? Has the state come up with programs to ensure that this woman is not going to be left vulnerable once the food that was brought in by well-wishers is finished? Or is it that now the state watu wameenda kumsaidia, very good. No, that's a good one. Wacha tuangalie watu wengine.
That's what I'm telling you. They also realize, and it's a crutch, unfortunately, because they realize that in some places or in some cases, you're going to come to the aid of somebody else. That we're going to come together and put things together to help somebody. So they realize, okay, even if we don't do it, somebody else will. And that's a very, very dangerous place to be in, whereby you've relegated your duty and responsibility as state to the citizens, where it should be the opposite direction. It should be the opposite.
Yeah. Let's pick some of these calls as well. Brian in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning, Space FM. I'm calling and checking, and I'm really painful hearing that case. The woman killing the kid isn't the solution. Working out or going forward with how shall I explain it? How shall I explain it? Okay, the social service failed.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is us electing bad leaders to work in the social services. So how can you take a person who used to sell changa at the streets and he comes and tells he wants you to be the MP, you select him to be the MP, he goes going to be the MP, and then you take the same person, come and park and check you and your needs. And the same time he was campaigning and he gave you money and he's just there for his selfish needs, and you elected him because of your selfish needs. So the selfish and the greed is what is killing us and is killing the social service sector and is killing everyone.
So it starts with us and how we are vetting the leaders that we elect.
No, it's not. It's not about the leaders. It's okay. It's all about us. Okay, if we elect the right leaders to the right position, they'll help us and they'll bring us the legislation and they'll pass laws that will benefit us. But if we just elect any guy, any person who don't have, right now all of you know our election goes, it's all on a tribal lines and partisan and stuff like that. So, like, you elect a person because he was from a certain party, and that person doesn't have any idea, doesn't know anything. That guy is basically a potato. you elect a potato into the seat. So last week we were talking about the police injustice, and we were saying that we talked about us taking the wrong people into the police force. You take a person with a D minus going into the police force, how will he help us? The person could not even literally read or talk in school. So how will he help us outside here? So we should get the real readers there. We should stop putting us potatoes there.
Thank you, Brian. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well.
Thanks.
I just want to contribute a little to this conversation. Earlier, City had mentioned that there could be a problem with us, the people first, before we get into the leadership of the leadership, so to speak. I'd like to agree with him in this sense. I came in my family. My mother had 12 other siblings, and each of them had around 5 kids, so we are around 60 cousins in total. And from our community, the grandmother taught them to always have this social in our Luo culture called Bura. Now, the thing is, every time somebody had a problem, like for instance, my mother lost her job. Both my parents lost their jobs in the early retrenchment of 2000.
Yeah.
They went through their savings because we're in schools. I was in national school. My sister was just finishing high school, so it was very difficult to transfer at the moment. And my aunties stepped in and schooled us all through till college. You see, now in the current society, you find different communities handle things differently. People tend to, if you have a problem, it is your problem. Somebody tells you, somebody can go to the extent like, who told you to have so many kids if you knew you don't have plans?
Yeah.
Other people would rather tell you, you know what, this problem has come up, let us step in. So my contribution is the community as a fabric has failed somewhere, first of all, because if you have your own net, say, for example, we are doing this as a community, you can collectively go and start faulting the government in whatever they are not doing. Not that the social protection community should not be faulted, but you to be more agitated, you should be more agitated from a position of, we have been doing this, we're taking care of ourselves, we put you here and you're doing nothing. So you see, you can now force them from a position of, if we can do this with bigger resources, how about you who are there?
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you.
Rebecca in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, team. How are you?
Good, Rebecca.
Okay. Even as we speak about this, I'd be curious to know, what are the competencies of the people who are employed at the social services? Do we just have people like the police that we see on the road that have these? I mean, who are the officials? Is there a way for us to find out and perhaps even call somebody in and have them speak on this issue?
What we know is that from what I know personally, the people who work as social protection officers in government are people who have actually studied. They've got minimums of degrees and such. I know of one person who has worked in that ministry, has studied up to a level of a master's degree in community services and such kind of programs. So if you talk about competence, if you talk about academic qualification, many of them have it. We'll find that many of them have it. If you go to the senior officers in the State Department of Social Protection, you will find competence. If you go to any of these organizations that now work under this State Department, you will find, in terms of qualification, you will find that qualification. Now, the breakdown maybe is in how they go about doing their job. What is this policy just a piece of paper? Is there proper implementation? And that goes and follows up and says, these are the programs that we have in place, and this is how we shall influence the national executive to give more attention to social protection. Because you see, one of the other things that we may have, just like we hear with very many of these cases, is the government itself, the focus in State House is not on social protection. The focus in State House is building an SGR. So the rest of you guys, if you're hungry in Sawa, you can ask your sister to help you feed your family.
Because clearly no one is giving that attention.
When this SGR is complete, you'll get a job.
Okay. It's a sad morning.
It is. It's a very, very unfortunate day that we are waking up to. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
All right, thank you.
0719-012-600. That's the number to call. Have this conversation. We, the three of us in the studio, we are, I'm pissed off. What are you?
No, we're monumentally miffed.
Yeah.
There you go. Monumentally miffed.
Into silence in some cases, unfortunately.
Okay, let's first take a look at traffic and then we pick your calls. We want to hear what do you think about this. What is it that now we can do to force the government to start thinking social protection is not a by the way, all right?
It's the way.
It is a constitutional requirement that the state has. And we cannot keep talking about progressive. This is not one of those that you keep arguing as politicians or Bill of Rights. Or no. This is something that we must have. And that's why we enacted it in the Constitution. If you're talking about BBI, scrap everything else and start with this. 22 minutes to 9.
Okay, so matatus are filling up to maximum capacity. It seems that nobody cares this morning. Right at General Motors and then Kitangela as well. No social distancing, no masks. Traffic police are there. It's a free-for-all this Monday morning. Don't get in the matatu. That's all I can say for now. Don't get in and add insult to injury. Okay, coming from Kiambu Road on Thika Road today. Joining Thika Road from that road is not going to be too easy right now. There's something being built around the Roy Sambu roundabout, and this is affecting traffic. Excavators digging very deep holes, so you need to be aware that that is taking place because the signage isn't quite communicating just that. You might find yourself in a hole this morning, so please be careful. Waiyaki Way Jam is moving very slow into Nairobi from Kikuyu and Kinyuru as well. It's going to take you a while to get in. I know that on the 87 construction has restarted. So Mayanja Road on Outer Ring Slip Road, another vehicle has overturned this morning. What is going on? I do not know, but we need to be careful, folks. Things seem to have returned to factory settings. Spice of MKE, let us know what you see. But the thing is, I'm going to say right now is please be extremely careful this morning.
20 minutes to 9 o'clock, 0719-012-600. This is the situation room. In the room, we have Eric Latif, Nduoko, and C.T. Muga. In case you're joining us just now, we are discussing a very sad story that happened in Naivasha on Saturday. C.T., just give us a summary of that.
The summary, the end of it is that 4 children were strangled to death by their maternal mother, the woman who gave birth to them. This lady's story goes back to the time when she was in university, and apparently, in her 4th year, she dropped out of college. Details about that are not given. She had a marriage, had 3 children. The marriage didn't work out. She left her 3 children and then got into another relationship. Again, details are not given, but she had 4 children. Then the job that she had, she worked for some NGO, came to an end, reportedly because of COVID-19. And she was in a chat group. She had relatives. She communicated with, but apparently she got to a point where she was at the end of her tether and felt she was unable to look after her children. She actually left a note which she wrote to her eldest son from her first marriage and explained the details of what she had done and what she would like the son to do and the person she would like her son to become. But she didn't end there. She seemed to have been self-incriminating, talking about how she's going to spend her life in jail and what's going to become of her life, which essentially from everything that we have read, she said that her life as it was known had come to an end. Now, we've heard of tragic stories, but this one just about takes the cup. A woman kills 4 young children, strangles them, not poisons, kills them one by one methodically. This is something that we should take note of because our papers are full of grisly stories. We heard of a woman who had, in Mombasa, was found boiling stones for her children. What sort of society have we become to the point where the plight of others just seems to be some daily news that we read and that's just about it? You know, in ancient Japan, there was a warrior class called the samurai. If you did something dishonorable, not you were told, you felt, because you knew what an honor code was. What was the equivalent of their constitution? You committed what they call seppuku. You slit your belly. Some died slowly, others had a second. Somebody would help chop off their heads. And this ceremony was celebrated. This is not something that was considered dishonorable, but the person understood the responsibility. We have leaders who are appointed, some are elected. And this is happening right under their watch. This is a case that is reported. What about the ones which are not reported?
And the way we bring this to the government is because if the government had proper structures, if the government was actually working towards social protection, they'd have been able to detect what is happening here. This woman would have known where to go to for help. This woman would have gone and said, look at these 4 children. This is the job I was doing. I have lost my job. This is how much I need to pay rent. This is how much bill I've accrued for electricity. And I have reached the end. I have no other source of income. How can you help me? This would have been able to have been detected. Now we're only hearing about it at the very end. The Mombasa case could have been detected before the media and the local community raised the issue. The Mombasa case could have been detected. We have a policy called the Social Protection Policy. And I'm going to read for you the objectives. The overarching goal of social protection is to ensure that all Kenyans live in dignity and exploit their human capabilities for their own social and economic development. To attain this, the following broad policy objectives shall be pursued. Number 1, protecting individuals and households from the impact of adverse shocks to their consumption that is capable of pushing them into poverty or into deeper poverty. Number 1 objective that shall be pursued, supporting individuals and households to manage these shocks in ways that do not trap them into poverty by reducing their exclusion and strengthening their ability to graduate from social assistance and to become financially self-sufficient. Policy? When it comes to writing policy, my friend,
best laid out plans.
Circle these 10 marks. All right, now we are at 20. Number 3, cushioning workers and their dependents from the consequences of income-threatening risks such as sickness, poor health, injuries at work, as well as from the threat of poverty in their post-employment life. Circle that. Another 10. Number 4, promoting key investments in human capital and physical assets by poor and non-poor households and individuals that will ensure their resilience in the medium term and that will break the intergenerational cycle of poverty. Circle, hey, my friend, take this to any government in the world.
Put it on any pedestal for global standards.
This is a
and
Kenya
it will come out
social
shining.
protection policy. And this is therefore supported by now having a State Department for Social Protection that shall implement this policy.
A ministry.
A whole ministry.
Not
that
a
has
department,
a
ministry.
Now,
Minister, PS, senior officers who drive big fuel guzzlers go around the country. This week they are going to Garbatola in Isiolo. Next week they are going to wherever. This is what they do.
take that policy, put it to the test, put it on the hot skillet, and you have runny eggs at best.
No, don't push it too much. Just take one item. If you put all of them, certainly,
runny eggs.
People will be under the weight of these things. So just start with one, and you'll still find the same result.
Yeah. The minister in charge of this.
Sorry, I'm already laughing.
Labor and Social Protection, Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, right? The minister in charge is called Simon Chelugui. The PS in charge is the former provincial administration officer called Nelson Maro.
Why are these people not in police cells answering questions as to why they are
This
actually
woman
allowed
should
Because
not
it is
take
not
this down.
seen as a crime. It is not seen as a crime. And we have to call it as just that. It is a crime because you put rules and laws by which your people should be governed. You put rules and laws by which your people should be protected. In the absence of that protection, it is akin to a crime. And because it's not seen as a crime, that's why these folks are sitting pretty in
My dear,
offices,
this isn't
riding those, what did you call them? Guzzlers.
Guzzlers.
All around
No,
the
my
country.
dear, this
It's not seen as a
this
crime.
isn't your regular garden variety crime. No, this is
The
we are
ones
now
you call crimes against
humanity.
That's where we are headed.
This is it. This is failure. If you look at what the argument by the Senate, for example, was talking about, in the case of Anne Waiguru, yes, she's there, but there are officers who are in charge. No. We are starting from the very top. Okay? In fact, let's take it all the way to State House. The president, the buck stops with the president.
Think about it like this. If you in your lowly job did not fulfill one of the descriptions by which you are bound, where would you be? Jobless and at home.
Yes.
Is it not? You would have lost your job. Straight, without question. Maybe they give you a warning or two and say, pull up your socks up, hun. Otherwise, you'll be out of a job, right? They'd give you a warning and give you some 3 months to get your acts together. And then if you don't, there's nothing like, let's talk about. No, there's nothing like, come, let's reason together. You lose your job. Now, in this case, people are dying as a result of you not having done your job.
Actually, you're speaking, I think you've got this thing a little mixed up. In this country, one gets the impression that when you're truly efficient is when you'll suffer that fate you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
When you're doing your job is when you're sent home.
Completely inefficient and inept.
Stay under the radar.
We'll promote you.
Under the radar in Europe. Edmond in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning. How are you guys?
We are annoyed.
Same to me. Actually, today is a very, very sad day. Actually, since I think the beginning of this year, nothing interesting has been in our papers or has been in our country so far. Because some of these things that you see are really, really painful. And you wonder if you have a government that is working.
We don't.
Yeah.
The government is giving you the answer. But every time you ask yourself, the government is very, very quick to remind you, no, we are not working.
Yeah. In fact,
just when you're about to give them the benefit of doubt.
Yes.
Actually, you see, based on this story, there's a very, very big problem in our society. Actually, the problem very, very well starts with our society. The society today is different from the society that we had a few generations back.
Yep.
The generations are changing frequently.
True.
And that's why you see the mentality or the mindset of the older society and of this society are different. Today, people who try to assume the top offices or the top posts, mainly they go there not because for the people, but because of their selfish gain.
It's a business for them.
It's a business, and it has become a business, and that's why you see us as the society have a problem. Because when somebody has stolen, is being made accountable. We the same people who are suffering, we are going out to defend them.
True. Good points there you've raised. Let me pick other callers as well. Michael in Umoja, good morning.
Very well. How are you, Eric?
I'm pissed off. How are you?
I'm not good as well. I'm also pissed off. I hope all the others are also on the same page.
Right there with you,
is
brother.
monumentally miffed.
Now, Eric, as much as I agree with all of you 100% that the people at the top need to also answer for this, we also have emissaries. You know, at times we have a tendency also just looking at the top.
Yep.
But these guys have emissaries where we have the chief, and we ourselves have also failed ourselves, where we need... Do you remember the Nyumba Kumi initiative?
Yep.
We failed ourselves. Kenyans don't want to understand some of these things, how they help us. Look at it this way. If the Nyumba Kumi initiative was there, and then this lady will know, like, this Lani, I will go to this particular person to give my information to tell 1, 2, 3 how it can be helped. Or even not even herself going, but the people around the neighborhood would know that a person in number 1, 2, 3 flat this or number this in the village is not doing well.
Yeah.
Because at times we look at it this way. Yes, Akina Marwa, they should be there. Even right now they should be answering. But again, I don't expect the Marwa would know somebody in Naivasha at this particular village is going and are going 1, 2, 3.
You know the reason why Marwa wouldn't know? Because Marwa has not put up a structure that gives him that information.
But the chiefs are there.
The chief does not report to Marwa.
No, I'm not saying that way, but at least these people, they should know from the ground that 1, 2, 3. I wish the chief would say, I've reported from my area 1, 2, 3, escalated to a particular area, but it has not reached.
The thing is that if there was a structure in place, there was a structure in place for somebody to go to whereby they have raised an issue, the chief would know. The chief would know that this week we had 20 people reporting to this particular area telling us about this issue that they have, and we've been able to help them in a certain way, 1, 2, 3. Or we are lacking this to be able to help them. Can you provide? But by virtue of the fact that there is no structure in place, those statistics then become impossible to collect.
You see, the structure that we have for the chief structure, the chief knew immediately there was the issue of murder. The chief knew immediately because that's how the structure is designed. That when there's some conflict of that nature, the chief will know. But before that, the chief had no way of knowing that this woman even lives in this area. This woman has lost her job. This woman has 4 children. This woman has defaulted in paying rent for 4 months. The chief does not know because that structure to inform the chief hasn't been created.
And now, when you're talking about the law, as you are just describing for us,
yep.
We have, like, from the bottom, because I'm not so clear about this one, we have like these social services in every village or in every offices around the county.
I know for a fact that they are there in every county.
In every county, you have
For-
a
to the
Department
village,
of Social Services.
Yeah.
Every county.
Now, how that structure communicates back and forth, whether it's the social officer who comes to the ground to tell you, I want you to register for me the old elderly people so that they can start receiving money, or whether the officer is actually told, this is how you have an open door policy. Anybody who has a need that requires social protection comes to them. That's where the question lies. And I have a feeling it doesn't exist.
Thank you. Now you're on the same page. The person who is there, the social worker, we should start with that social worker. As we are going to Namaru and everybody, they should all be accountable.
Yep.
Because you see, there's somebody who should be escalating. We have these people, yes, at the very top who are very liable, and they should be in. But right now, the social worker in that area, we should know what is the work, what do they do, are they paid to sit there? Because we've lost our life. Kenya is going down, we are not doing well.
True. Thank you, Michael. Barry, also in Nairobi, good morning.
Eric, how are you?
Paula, you've been on the holding for a while.
No worries. Eric, I'm asking, are we in this country or this radio station is based somewhere else?
This radio station?
Yes.
It's actually on Mombasa Road in the Republic of Kenya. And the
Yes,
county of
and
the Nairobi Metropolitan Region.
I'm wondering why certain things are surprising you.
No, they're not surprising
this is our
me.
life.
They're pissing me off.
Yes, but this has been our life. In this country, you are.
But why must it be our life?
It must be our life because the way this society has been structured. Actually, City calls it correctly. City calls it soulless. Remember?
Yes.
We are a soulless society. In my community, there's a proverb. The proverb says, loosely translated, that the hunger or starvation in your brother's home will not stop you from sleeping. You'll be a bit concerned, right?
Yep.
But it will not stop you from sleeping. City in this town, there's also a principle called city. I don't know, CYTY. It means, can I trust you? So everyone is asking that. If someone is seeking help from you, the first thing you're asking is, can I trust you? The person receiving the help is also asking, can I trust you? So in a society that has completely broken down, the family structure or the concerns, but it's no longer there. You see, this lady reached out to everyone in the chat group, in family members. How comes nobody came to his rescue, to her rescue?
Yep.
The question is, we've completely broken down as a family. In this town, I can tell you guys, you can walk and you are mugged, and the pedestrian passing by you walks as if nothing happened. We become a soulless society, and don't talk about government structures, because the government structures are also premised on something else. The thing is, if there is nothing to benefit a government officer for undertaking a job,
they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. That's the truth. In fact, I like Ugandans. Ugandans have formalized it. It's a principle they call Ofunirawa. Ofunirawa means, what is there for me? So so the social protection officer is asking,
Ofunirawa.
Ofunirawa, yes. I'm coming to help you. Ofunirawa. What's there for me, right? So in the absence of what is there for me, most actions, whether beneficial or destructive, will never be undertaken. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Barry. Completely annoying. So, look, there are social service officers at locational level, children officers on the ground at sub-county level, but they are poorly supervised and they hardly follow up cases except when attending meetings and seminars.
That one they'll have the money for.
That's what they'll do. When they come to doing their job, it's a proper structure of government that is completely failing. And I want to say, all right, so yes, we have the PS in charge of social protection. We have the minister who's in charge of this policy. We have the president who chairs the cabinet, who's the head of government. Mr. President, your government is completely broken down. It's not working for the people of this country. Bottom line, as we have this woman who should now be getting support, instead of languishing in a police cell today, she should be getting support. At the same time, we should be having officers answering to what went wrong. What happened? Where were you when this was happening?
You know, we celebrated when we had the first COVID patient who got well. And we celebrated. What about these 4 children?
Yeah.
Children who didn't need to die.
absolutely did not have to. Let's just do a wusa.
Is it that hour?
Yeah.
Mm-mm. I can't. No.
Okay, anyway, let's move on. City, today's proverb.
When you befriend a chief, remember that he sits on a rope. And the chief is not just a headman. Chief is anybody who is in authority. So,
as you're
whether
befriending
you're
him,
anyone who is a chief in this ministry, you're sitting on a rope. As Kenyans say, be knowing.
Be knowing. Kaa ukijua. Ukae ukijua, you're sitting on a rope. It's not lasting. It's not going to last. But we must find ways of demanding that the government follows up to the ideals of our constitution and does what a government should do. Protect its people. And when a government is just having officers in place and those officers are not serving the people, then that government ought to go home. Saa tatu asubuhi.
home.
Saa tatu, you know the way they say that they were elected saa tatu asubuhi? Saa tatu asubuhi, it's now coming to 9 o'clock. Go home, government. Good morning.
All right, it seems that we're in for the count this morning. Yet another accident on Magadi Road just after the Brookhouse dip. And it's quite bad because it's in both directions. And of course, Matatu has helped to contribute to that. This is going to affect traffic on Langata Road all the way through and probably for a couple of hours because of how bad this has been. It's Monday morning and I know everybody's rushing about to get a thing or three done, but you need to be careful, guys. Mombasa Road is still moving a little bit slowly, but not so bad. And we're also looking at a couple of accidents that happened right along Thika Road as well. Gong traders are suffering this morning after the loss of after a night fire, and so that has affected some traffic there. People trying to salvage what they can. Junction at Ngongru is a disaster in waiting this morning as well. Trying to get all the way down to the city mortuary roundabout is going to be a spectator sport today. So patience and being careful is what we need this morning. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see as well, and we can spread the word. We're trying to keep people safe so that you can arrive alive today.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga,
That conversation
researcher,
continues
academic,
on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Let's rally around. Let's demand action and response from government on what ought to be done going forward. Shifting gears a little bit, this is Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. And also we are live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. So now, shall we talk about COVID?
Yeah, we're going to have to look towards COVID for this upcoming conversation, and it's necessary, I think, to look at the fact that quite a number of people then either suspected of or having been found to be with COVID as it were. And this is coming off the story that we heard this morning that sources say legislators, and quite a number of them, up to 20, coming from the House members of Parliament to be tested before for COVID, and the fact that lawmakers were admitted to different hospitals in Nairobi, with one said to have been in intensive care. They've also revealed that many other legislators who had come into contact with their positive colleagues rushed to get tested during the weekend, raising fears that the number of the positive cases could rise once their pending results are released. We have this fear, it is here with us, and it is clear that more and more people are getting infected. More and more people now that you can resonate with are getting affected, or rather are getting infected. And so then raises the question, and before we raise the question, now looking at other areas where we've heard stories and we've seen that, suddenly people arrive in hazmat suits in your neighborhood as if it was something out of a space movie, and then questions are being asked and the finger is being pointed. All right, somebody in that house then has COVID. What happens after that? And we ask ourselves the question then, is it necessary to disclose your status when it comes to this virus, because of the fact that it is so highly infectious, and the possibilities of you having been in a place where somebody else was previously, or having come into contact with somebody else? To remove ourselves from the issue of stigma, is it necessary for disclosure to make sure that other people can, number one, help you as an individual, rally around to help your family if you then need to go into quarantine or isolation? Number two, so that people can then go and get treatment for themselves, or at least get tested to find out if they also may have contracted this virus. And number three, to also help others realize this is the state of what is going on, and also help them to be aware that this has happened. We know that when things have happened in the way that they have, when people have come to be taken away into isolation and quarantine, that people start to feel a little bit, they're stigmatized, and that's for sure, because people begin to point fingers, and you wear this scarlet letter for a little bit too long. But when we're looking at things like this, a member of parliament who is a public figure then has been found to have COVID-19. This individual, by nature of their responsibility and work, comes into contact with several people throughout the day. Isn't it only wise that they let people know who this individual is, not for purposes of shaming them, but for purposes of protecting themselves and also protecting others who may have come into contact with them? We heard the senator from Makueni when he got tested a couple of months ago, and he said, you know what? I've been tested. My status is negative. And the reason why I'm telling you is so that you know also I may have come into contact with you previously. Had I been positive, I would have said the same thing. So that you also are able to protect yourself, and that you know that maybe if you were in contact with me, you should also go get tested and do something to protect yourself. We had the provost of the All Saints Cathedral, who also was tested and found to be positive. He declared his status and he told people, this is what has happened. You can imagine. He's dealing with different people day in, day out, and said, I am telling you also, not so that I can glorify this, but also so that I am letting you know so that you can also get tested and you can seek treatment if it is necessary. We also had yet another religious leader who told people, I have been found positive. I went to ICU, and this was Bishop Margaret Wanjura, and she said, look, I had COVID, I went into ICU, I was under treatment, I have come out and I am well. For people who are also in my vicinity, please go and get tested. And what I'm saying this morning is that it is stigmatized, highly stigmatized, because people are pointing fingers the way in which it had been done before. But I do feel now that as we are seeing things, especially because we want people to be protected, we want people to be safe and healthy, it is necessary for self-disclosure if you find yourself to have been COVID positive, for the protection of others.
Okay. I think going into that issue and calling it self-disclosure, you have avoided a serious minefield there. And that's the legal minefield. And the ethical minefield for the government and healthcare professionals. A doctor cannot go and disclose your status without your consent, right? Same thing, the government cannot go and disclose your status, right? So the way to avoid that and not having even that whole conversation of, someone can take you to court, we are talking about encouraging people to come out themselves and disclose themselves. I completely agree with this, because it's one way of also fighting stigma, and it's one way of the community coming together to fight COVID-19.
Right.
Because the truth of the matter is, just like you said, you will find a police car plus an ambulance coming to somebody in a house in your estate, in your neighborhood. You'll find people getting out with those spacesuits, getting into that house. You'll see people being removed from that house. You'll see people no longer coming out of the house. And everybody in the neighborhood will start talking about and, pointing fingers and saying, kuna COVID pale kwa ile nyumba. That increases that stigmatization. So that family basically is just being looked at. You guys are sick. It's like you're lepers.
You went somewhere.
You misbehaved, and that's
you did
how
something wrong.
That's how come you got COVID. But if you came out and you started having this conversation, just from that level, family level, and then looking at community level, you and your neighbors come out and say, this is the status. This is, guys, we've tested positive. We are in isolation, or we are in quarantine, or we've been told to isolate ourselves at home. So and so, we are all asymptomatic, or such and such family member of ours has developed symptoms, and therefore they have gone to hospital. Help us, pray with us, pray for us. That community now starts looking at it as any other disease. When somebody has malaria in a neighborhood, see people say,
yeah, I had malaria.
Ameenda hospitali, akona malaria. Or pneumonia. We say it. We fight this COVID because of the stigma that we associate with this COVID. Because we started from that point of stigma. And I think the way to break that stigma is by starting to become open. Is it easy?
If stigma was something like a shirt which you put on
and take off,
and then take off, it would be easy. The one epidemic that to date, we are still dealing with is something called HIV. For people to get to the point of understanding stigma, first of all, people who are counseled, it took a long time. Not just in understanding stigma, but in also understanding how to destigmatize. When you test for COVID, I am not sure what sort of counseling is offered to you. I'm not sure whether even after that there's a continuing message of counseling, because counseling has a process that gets your mind, prepares your mind to fully understand this thing, not just how to accept it, but how to manage it and how to move away from it and how to live normally with it. That's what that process of counseling is supposed to do. But if you assume that it's like a cold and say, okay, please take this tablet 3 times a day and you should be fine, then the truth of the matter is this. That stigma that we associate with HIV, it will be the same sort of stigma that you associate with COVID. You tell me, in the time that you have been, as I like saying, alive on this planet, did you ever hear any leader in government or in the political arena coming out and saying, I am HIV positive and this is how I'm managing ABC? Did one?
Till tomorrow.
No.
Till tomorrow, nothing.
No. Did you ever hear a religious leader I'm covering everybody here, coming out and saying, I am HIV positive?
I actually had one. I heard of one. I read of one who talked about how they got HIV and they were going to explain. It was about the whole issue of blood transfusion. Trying to explain it. I was in an accident and this is what happened, and all those blood transfusion, and later tested positive. Just trying to first of all move that conversation from Pastor, uko na HIV? Kumbe.
Even the things you tell us.
You see? So yeah, the issue of stigma is not an easy one.
No, but
we are at a beginning point of this particular disease.
But we're not at the beginning point of stigma.
No, we're not.
We're not. Stigma is not just related to disease. Stigma is related to fears and the irrational perspectives that we even have. There was a time if you married someone from another community, you'd be stigmatized. Married. To understand it, you only need to look at places like the US where racism was institutionalized. You couldn't marry across color lines. And if you did, you were stigmatized. Your children were stigmatized. It's the same stigma. If somebody in the community did not do well in school, the reason why people either left where they lived or people sort of like migrated, it's stigmatization. You are in school, others did well, you didn't do well, stigmatization.
Yeah.
It's something that must be understood in the context of how we socialize ourselves and then how we socialize our children. And how the society around us has evolved stigmatization and brought it to cover a very broad base of things.
COVID having been so new, however, the stigma for COVID, I mean, not to give any kind of timeline on how soon you can begin to stigmatize someone or a group of people, but the stigma for COVID, I think, was present immediately COVID was present. And so for this thing that you waited to get to the shores of Kenya for so long, and then it came, and then the question was, okay, how did you get it? Who are you with?
If COVID wasn't here, we would have found something else
this is the thing.
To divert our mindset to.
That is the thing. The point that we didn't even have to wait for it to be here for a very long time before he started pointing fingers at people. But unfortunately, stigma is not just about an attitude that I have. It is also something that, like you say, is institutionalized. From how the issue is handled, then brings in the point of stigma. But now you need to look at it. How were you able to get rid of the issue of stigma within HIV? You began to normalize the conversation. We didn't
get rid of it.
No, not to say it.
We simply reduced it significantly, but we didn't get rid of it.
And who started having the conversations to people then who would get HIV later? People who already had HIV.
Yes.
Because it was easy for them to pass the message. So let's extrapolate the same to COVID. Who easier to have a conversation about COVID to other people who may not than those who have it? And to make it normal to say, here I am, by virtue of the fact that I'm going to come in contact with you, and you. And I have COVID today. Understand, it's not a death sentence, just like HIV is not. Understand that you will have it and you will heal. Unfortunately, for HIV, not yet. You will heal at some point. So, if I have it today, and I may have come in contact with you, and you, I am saying it is much better for me to open my mouth and say, I have it. Not because I am going to die, but because I am trying to protect you and the people in my area. That's it. And I'm saying we need to remove those labels if we're going to be able to deal with something like this. Look at what's happening right now, CT. People are running amok now and rushed to get tests over the weekend because they're not quite sure. Did I? Didn't I? May I have not? What do I need to do? Whereas it would have been very easy to say, here I am. My name is, I did 1, 2, 3. I got tested and I have been found to be positive. Those of you who may have been in contact with me on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in this place, the other place, and that place, please go and get tested. Simple.
Not as simple as it sounds.
Simply said. But let me tell you, it isn't as though we don't have the means, or we don't have the structures, or we don't have the networks to manage an epidemic. If you've had one epidemic and you're talking about a communicable disease, you already have the network. South Africa understood this. I mean, we've said this before, so let's say it again. Those are people who were already trained. This door-to-door management of things, community, family, they understand it, they were trained. The only thing they were not trained in, perhaps, is about COVID.
Yep.
I haven't heard of a program where the government has said, all these networks that we've had that have been handling this thing,
let's activate them.
Let's activate them. Yes, because what you referred to Ndu was what you call peer education. Meaning, someone who is HIV positive telling you, excuse me, these are the drugs that I have, and this is what I have been doing. Not this, okay? This is the way you should be done, this is what I've been doing. And this is why I have this. And you know what happens? Somebody gets the point where, even in public, they'll tell you, I need to take my meds.
Yeah.
In the community I used to work in, they even had a name for ARVs. They call it Andela. Now, Andela is actually to take, it's related to groundnuts.
It's like popping.
You pop and you keep chewing. So this one you take one. And remember, ARVs came from the point where you almost had an entire pharmacy of drugs for you to carry around with you.
That's why it was called the cocktail.
Yes, the point where you had probably 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you talk about HIV right now, there's an alarm. Shortage of HIV drugs.
Maneno ingine. Let's take a break. 18 minutes after 9. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's look at the weather.
17. We'll see highs of 24 today throughout the city. Taking a look then into Nyeri, 22 degrees, the high with partly cloudy conditions for most of the day. And in Nakuru, we're going to see a high of 23 and lows of 11. Eldoret, partly cloudy conditions through today, and we will see rain coming down later with highs of 22 and lows of 11. Kisumu is partly cloudy through the day today with highs of 28, and Kakamega will see rainy conditions later with a high of 25. In Malindi, it's partly cloudy, we'll see highs of 29. Mombasa will see the same with highs of 29. Kampala, likely to be a thunderstormed afternoon. Highs of 26 and lows of 18. And in Dar es Salaam, it's going to be a foggy afternoon with highs of 32. In Johannesburg, it's mostly sunny at 6 degrees. We will see lows of 1 and highs of 17. All right, taking a peek into Lagos. It's a thunderstormed afternoon, highs of 27 and lows of 23. Let's take a last look then into Europe, where in Paris, it's sunny conditions at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 14. And in London, 13 degrees currently, cloudy conditions in the afternoon with highs of 20 and lows of 12. The sun's going to come up very soon in New York. It's going to be a cloudy day, however, and then into a sunny morning and into a rainy afternoon with highs of 31 and lows of 21.
Wherever you are in the country, Malindi, Nyeri, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nairobi, wherever you are around the world, you are watching us on www.spicefm.co.ke or Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, SpiceFMKE. We are talking about the stigma associated with COVID-19. And one of the ways of dealing with this stigma is having more open conversations. So yes, every time we hear the CAS or the CS coming to announce and give us the new numbers, they tell us about the numbers. People who are getting COVID-19. And now we're told these ones are, in the last 24 hours, the highest number was in Mombasa, Nairobi, and then we go to other counties. Now we have one case. The reaction, especially in the counties that now are receiving those cases, is, oh my God, we have one now in our county. And it goes with that association of, what's happening? Who are those people? How did they get it? Did they come from Nairobi? Did they cross the barrier? Did they sneak in? There's that stigma associated with it. Now the story this morning is about members of parliament who reportedly have tested positive for COVID-19, and their colleagues in parliament are going to get tested. We do not know who these members of parliament are. We have also heard State House saying their staff have tested positive for COVID-19. There's rumor abound all over about the senior State House staff who's in hospital, who's been hospitalized. You don't know who. The president has come out to say, well, I've been tested and me and my family are negative. We don't hear of those that are saying, I've been tested, I'm positive, apart from a few cases. Should we start normalizing this by encouraging people to self-declare their status? Once you test positive, you come out and say, you know what, guys, I've tested positive, and now my family is going into quarantine. They have tested negative, or they've also tested positive. We are asymptomatic, and this is what's happening.
You know what makes this thing difficult, Eric, is because right now the number of people who've tested positive in this country, how many? Have we 6,000 yet?
Yes.
Okay, 6,000. If more people were tested and it was clear that there are very many people who have COVID, they are asymptomatic, it becomes normal simply because of the numbers. You stop. This idea of I'm among the few who has this terrible condition simply fades out slowly because you suddenly realize, wait, and then the number of people you know who will test positive will also increase. So it isn't something that happens to other people and something which you must continuously run away from. It's preventable. That we already know. But it is better if you are tested. Because why did I mention this issue of ARVs? See, the people who already know their status may be concerned, but they will know what they ought to do. Here we have a situation where people are worried about COVID and they haven't even tested. Well, the reasons why they may have not have tested. But when you know your status, believe me, it is a lot easier to deal with the situation. But if we can't test enough people, we will not be able to deal with stigma.
But however, CT, yes, the reality is that we can't test very many people.
Why
That's
not?
where we are.
Why not?
Our reality is we can't.
Our reality is we're told we can't, just like our reality is we're told we don't have money.
Yeah.
And I've told you, nonsense.
Yeah.
We have money.
So that's the reality. You see, the reality is now.
The reality is we have money. The falsehood is that we keep being told we don't have money.
Beyond. We have only tested how many?
Hold on.
Less than 120,000.
Our capacity to test means this is Kenya's capacity to test means this is what you can test. Now, it doesn't change. You can test up to 30,000 in a day, right? That's your capacity, what you're able to do. Now, that has not been done. The threshold has not been met for several reasons. Now, the reasons that they're giving you is because we don't have enough money, we're not able to procure the reagents, etc., etc.
And those are factors of capacity. You see,
Eric is right. It is a factor of capacity.
Our capacity, yes, we have the labs that can do this, and then also we have the equipment that can match that.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have the equipment,
but now
your capacity is
yes. But if you look at the reasons why that is not being able to be done, now they say they don't have money. That could be the reasons. CT is saying that is not a reason as to why it cannot be done. Now it goes beyond now what you're able.
These things.
Sorry,
they actually don't even.
How
are
the people accessing it? Where are they getting their supplies from?
We're also getting, but we're just not getting in high numbers.
No, we're not buying enough. Because of this excuse that we don't have money, or this nonsensical attitude this beggar mentality that we are waiting for someone to give us. No one is going to give us those things. Everybody has a problem in the world right now.
Yes. So let's come back into the issue of capacity or not semantics. We are not testing a high number right now. All right? As we speak today, people are fearing COVID. Today as we speak. Now, if we went into starting first of all to encourage the community to speak by using our opinion leaders in our society to speak out about COVID. Our opinion leaders, for example, let's start with State House. So the president has come out to say, you know what, my family and I, we got tested and we turned negative. Those that turn positive, encourage them as well to come out and say, I, MP so-and-so, I got tested and I turned positive. And this is what is happening to me. I, religious leader so-and-so, I got tested, turned positive, and this is what is happening. I've been taken to hospital and such. Come cascaded down to leaders in our community. I have been tested, and this is it. Then we start saying, even the moment when we increase our numbers and we're able to test 100,000 people per day, and you test positive, it'll not be anything major. It'll be okay. Just like when you saw people going to Kawangware to put up those tents to do the tests and the swabs, that did a lot in terms of creating more awareness about what this COVID-19 is all about. It had a positive impact.
For sure.
Just people seeing that, Nipale, kwa ile tent, people, what are they doing? You just go, you sit down, they put a thing up your nose, they put another thing down your throat, and you're told wait for 2 days. There were very many issues of, that thing is uncomfortable and all, but you could see somebody went, sat there, they walk out.
I think that's what the elements, the process then requires a lot of undoing of what was done previously, whereby if somebody was found to be COVID positive, it was a whole thing of an entourage of vehicles, take them, wrap them up and then take them somewhere else to some unclosed one. Number two was that if you're found to be with COVID, then you would have to pay for it, and before all of that was unraveled. Then number three was that,
Has it been unraveled really?
Well, okay. There's still elements of payment, right? And then another thing was that, okay, then we started to conflate issues, found out after curfew, then you're arrested, taken to quarantine. So we started to mix a lot of issues. Now, the process to normalizing...
Plus. The CS coming out to talk about, can you imagine these people? They crossed borders. They crossed barriers. And they went to take COVID there.
Right. So now,
what is wrong with these people?
The process of normalizing this so that people get comfortable enough to say it now requires a lot of undoing what was the practice for the last 16 weeks. Okay? And I think that's one thing that has to become, a lot of this has to be repealed to say that it's okay. And it's going to have to come out of the same mouths of those individuals who put those messages out there in the first place. So it's got to be a collective effort. In as much as we talk about self-declaration, There has to be an additional messaging from the people who put out this negative messaging in the first place. It's got to be a combined effort here, so that where it's the person who's next to you in terms of your neighbor saying that, all right, I have COVID and I want to be able to help, or I'm putting out a message for help there, so that people who are related to me or know of me can then come in and help. At the same time, it's got to come from the authorities to say that, okay, whereas before it would have been punitive, whether they admit it or not, in this case, what we are saying is now it's going to be collective, so that all of us now can help one another. Because everything else clearly has failed. If now we have people running around, we don't know where these people were over the last 100 days. We don't know. But we're saying it's all right. In order for us to protect more people, then tell us, right? As opposed to keeping this information, tell us so that other people can be protected. If we keep saying we're going to fight this thing together, this is the way you fight it together. By people saying, this is it. And for them not having to wear the scarlet letter on their chest for as long as they have this infection, or for whomever, because it could happen to anybody. And if we're going to normalize it, we're going to have to undo a lot of the things that we did and come actually work together. It can't be you shouting at people. It can't be you pointing at people. It's got to be coming together and saying, all right, if we're going to fight this thing properly, the way people have been talking about from the very beginning, it's got to be together.
I have bad news for you. What you're saying won't work.
Okay.
You'll tell us why it won't work. 9:30. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Should we go into a point of self-disclosure of our COVID-19 status? If you test positive for COVID-19, just encourage people to come out and say, well, I've tested positive and this is what's happening. I'm going through treatment. I am symptomatic. I'm asymptomatic. My family members have been tested and this is the status. And this is what we are doing, so that your community members can know and they can stand with you throughout this time. And also, you're helping to protect them. Let's take a look at the traffic.
Right, looking a little bit better in certain areas. We still have the problem on Magadi Road today, and that's going to affect traffic on Langata Road and then getting into either Bagathi Way or the Greater Langata Road today. So just know that if you're stuck, the reason was because there was an accident on the dip there, and it's affecting everybody everywhere you go. Mombasa Road traffic towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout is moving slowly. There seems to be a little bit of a drizzle in that area, so the roads are a bit slippery, but take care of yourselves. So apart from that, this is what we understand, that it'll get a little bit better now as we get out of traffic hour. If you see anything that we should know about, do let us know. But for now, it looks like it's going to be all right until it isn't.
Self-disclosure about COVID-19 status. You're saying that will not work.
You know what Ndu has just said, in this mythical world where the bulk of our leaders were both sensible, sane, not both, sensible, sane, and responsible, and in that same world where you had a citizenry who didn't mistrust their leaders and their government as much as this one does, as we do, yes, it had a very, very good chance of working because it's sensible and straightforward. Unfortunately, sensible and straightforward things in this country don't have a very good track record of working. For the simple reason that every time something comes up which is plausible and which is sensible and which makes sense, like what Ndu was saying, believe me, it will die at infancy. For the simple reason that, what is that Ugandan word? What will it do for me again? That one.
Word,
we
yes.
both know what that word means. It will take center stage. The reason why there are all these delays, it's not that we can't get these things, it's that it's because someone somewhere feels that they need to benefit from it directly. These are facts that we know. I believe that the only way you deal with these things is you begin by being, unfortunately, brutally honest about where we are, who we are, and what you as an individual can do. Start there, then say, okay, now what can I expect to be done for me?
Okay.
And what can I push the government to actually do?
But you see, the premise of today's conversation is you declaring your status. Not government telling you, not government declaring on your behalf.
You know.
You go, you get tested forever.
See, I've covered that one of where you
become unwell. Yes. You become unwell. You come and say it.
But then this one I covered my base as well.
Let's start with there. So how would that not work?
You see, why it wouldn't work.
Let's assume that we don't have a government, because we live like we don't have a government anyway. Let's live like we don't have a government.
We do have a government.
Now look at your neighborhood, look at your family members. You test positive, you come out and say, guys, nimetoka hospitali, I've tested positive, I'm COVID-19, I'm going into this, I'm going into treatment, or I've been told it's really highly asymptomatic, I'm going to isolate at home. This is what I'm doing. We see it from other communities as well.
You know, the what we tend to do
okay.
People are talking about herd immunity, but the herd mentality is how we function when we are faced with the sort of situation we're faced with COVID, where COVID is related. Someone is going to do what they've seen many other people do. If everybody around you was going to hospital, all right, you would also feel, you know, since so-and-so has gone, nothing untoward has happened to them, then this being tested must be fine. So now, perhaps it is one of those few and rare cases where we need to put the cart before the horse and hope it will work, okay? Because it isn't just a question of messaging. No, it's a question of messaging and understanding that message will be understood the way you want it to be understood. But if it isn't followed by some action, then that messaging, again, will just be that words. If we talk about testing, people can't test themselves. They have to go to a place where they can get tested.
Right.
And the messaging that we keep getting is that we don't have sufficient equipment to test almost everybody who would want to get tested. So already, people who might have gone to get tested feel, you know, I might as well not bother going. And the simple reason is that I may not get tested. Now, why, when we're talking in an earlier time, I had said, this issue of we don't have money and we don't have test kits, it's not a question of what we don't have, it's a question of how we place our priorities. If we really wanted to have these tests kits, we would have them. If that was really at the focus, we would have them. We would have them.
I feel like, yes, what you're saying is it's another angle to the conversation, but it's a further angle from the very basic.
It is.
Today, in your neighborhood, city, all right? Your neighborhood has, people of Nyumba Kumi, has neighbors. If somebody in your neighborhood tested positive, right, for COVID-19, there are a number of protocols that will come in place. Now we are talking about home-based care.
I agree completely.
We are talking about people isolating themselves and going into quarantine. Okay? There will be rumors in your neighborhood that so-and-so, those guys in that house have tested positive. One way of basically just dealing with this is if those guys just decided to come out to your neighborhood and said, guys, we've tested positive, we are in isolation, or we are in quarantine. When the same members of that community, some of them who traveled back into the country and they went into self-quarantine, they declared, I just arrived, so, sitoki kwa nyumba because I'm on quarantine. It was easy for them to say. But if you test positive, it becomes more difficult to say because you're fearing what your neighbors will say. And that's the conversation that we're having. Should we just accept, all of us, that if I test positive, I will tell my neighbors, I'll tell my family members?
Because what's the point? Because if we're trying to look at it, what is the point of sharing this information? The point of sharing this information is not so that people can point fingers at you and say, ho, what did you do or where did you go? The point is so that other people, number one, can also go and find out if they may have contracted it by virtue of the fact that they were in your area. That's all right. And it's also, is there some kind of help? We keep talking about this nyumba kumi, right?
Yep.
Also, is there some kind of help that you need? If you need to be away for
for me, your number two is my biggest point.
So
is my
if
biggest
you need
reason.
to be away,
because the number
can
one
we help
reason,
with your family members,
tracing,
for
government
example?
will do contact tracing.
Yes, but the rest,
it's the community supporting one another. It is a community coming out to say, all right, so, okay, you've told us you're COVID-19, you're in isolation. How can we guys help you? You're not coming out of your house. Can we help in getting supplies for you? You need to go to the shop. How can we help you?
How can we help?
If you fall sick, if you feel that you're getting worse, how can we help? You can call any of us and we can activate the ambulance networks to come and pick you and
with
take
the
you to hospital.
home-based protocol that's in place now, if you need to be away and you're in isolation, for example, because you're being treated, is there a way that we can help with your family members? And I think that's the way we need to be looking at this now, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get less people infected, and can there be help that can be offered to those who are not?
Yep. Paul Kinyanjui is calling from Makueni. Paul, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Are you well?
I'm very well.
Good. Should people self-declare?
Yeah, I'm catching on your talk today. And I'd like to participate also concerning COVID and what you're talking about this morning.
Go ahead, Paul. Should people declare their status?
One thing I'd like to say, if people are to declare their status there, it's important that there be protection provided for them. And even it should not even begin with self-disclosure. One thing about stigma is that very many people don't know about what is stigma, what is it all about. And I think what should start is education, educating people, even if it's through the media. There should even be very serious adult education going on. There should even something like Safaricom, the way they send messages to people concerning stigma and what it's all about. And that's one very important thing to do. Most people don't even know this term stigma, and it should even be translated in other languages. The other thing I'd like to say is that one reason why one of the biggest causes of stigma in our societies. Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is that you see us as Africans, we are brought up in a very socialized system in the society. But with the time, through formal education and also economic advancements, we reach a point where we are in a I can call it, allow me to say, capitalistic society. So people are working, searching for their earnings and living and everything, and they forget each other. I think it's a high time people go back and to their society, their homes, and look at each other. Everything is not about money.
And how should they do this? This going back to their society. How exactly should they go about this?
Yes, good. One of the things that people should do is to think about their identity. Who are they? You see, when the education system came, most people are going to school to learn in order to work and get jobs and earn a living and become rich. I think we should go back to our value systems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, and also, if you allow me a minute, from your previous conversation concerning that lady and about the Naivasha issue, it really touched me. And I'm sorry about that. But what I would like also to say is to go back to the same values and attributes about sharing generosity and thinking about each other. I think that's very important.
Thank you very much, Paul. Have a good day.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Should people just be encouraged to declare their status, COVID-19 status? Just say, I tested, I'm positive.
They should. But for it to work, this messaging must, it can't be a one-off, and it can't be to individuals. You actually have to do it within a community setting. You have to, so that everyone more or less hears the same message, and you keep repeating it, changing it, and allowing people to bring about their fears. You know why? He said people don't know about stigma. They do. It's just that they don't know it's called stigma.
Yeah, it's the word.
It's just that the word that they know exactly what it is.
For the longest time, Many parents hid children whom they thought had a mental issue. Some hid children who they thought had physical deformities. That's stigma.
Yep.
You didn't know it was called stigma, but it is stigma.
Yep.
If you had a daughter who got pregnant when she was in her adolescence, it was stigma. If a woman got a child and the child or was in a marriage and the marriage did not work and she had to come back home, that was stigma.
Stigma.
We've lived with stigma for the longest times. It's just that it's like you want to find new forms of it. All right? But think back to COVID. The help that was provided surrounding COVID is what really skyrocketed the stigma. You are quarantined.
Then you pay
it was
for it.
punishment.
Yeah, yes, that
Then you pay
quarantine
for
was
it.
It was punishment. Everything about it is just punitive and all.
Yes.
Go back to the phone lines, shall we?
Yes, please.
Jeff in Kwale, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good
morning.
I've been listening to your conversation and it's quite interesting and sad. Started with you from the lady from Naivasha, and now we are talking about COVID. My contribution, especially on COVID, is that I think we have, since we don't have a standardized approach, then you find that every county is going on its own way. And I'll give a case in point. My brother-in-law lost a farm man, and it was in Tanariva. We decided to pick the body and take it to his place, which is in Eldama Ravine. And I can tell you, from Tanariva to Eldama Ravine, we didn't have much of a problem along the way. But when we reached there, you know, even the brother of the guys were not even allowed to see the wives and anybody. There was such a big barrier between us and them. We were told, "Wekeni jeneza pale." It is sanitized. Now we are giving you 5 minutes, mrudi kwa gari, mrudi zenu, ama you go straight to quarantine.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
If you go to 6th minute, you will catch COVID.
Yeah, they will catch COVID because they were believing that since we are coming from coast, most likely we have COVID, and by then COVID had not hit that area.
Yeah.
But I've also interacted with one guy who had the disease, and I can tell you that the moment I was called and told, you know, so and so has turned positive, did you interact with them? I said yes. On Tuesday I had an interaction. I called the public health officers. I told them, "Hey guys, I interacted with so and so, and I hear they are positive." You know, the result. The guy told me, "Go back home, stay there, and you wait. If you feel that you are not okay, call us. We come and get the test from your house." And now I was wondering, do I go back to my family, stay with my kids? I'm not even sure whether I'm sick or not sick. And I mean, it was just terrible. I think they need to have a standardized procedure so that across board, it is understandable. When you get, this is what you're expecting. When you come in contact with a person with this is the procedure to go. If you don't have, then this is the procedure to go.
Clarity of information.
I think when we have an open society, then and open information, it will be very easy.
True. Very, very true, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hasn't he just gotten to the heart of the matter?
He
the
has.
stigma is exacerbated by the processes that
Everything around it. When you come, you get tested. From the very beginning, when you come and you're told, you know, stay from there. If you're coughing, go to that side. If you're not coughing, go to this side. The whole treatment of it and how the public officials react and the health officials react to this, that burial issue. You have come to bury someone, 5 minutes, mtoke mwende mwingie kwa gari na mrudi. Turn back.
Because someone had told them that this particular virus is transmitted within a period of 5 minutes.
You have escorted the body from the coast, from Tana
If you
River.
stay longer,
you have
you
come
get it.
all the way. And then
stay
you're
longer,
told.
you get it.
Yeah, and the family members, you're also told, you know, don't come, you can't come close. The communication around it is what is wrong. Because you can understand, yes, you're trying to maintain the distance between the body and everybody else, but communicate it in a better way.
But even those who would be given, even those who would be given the responsibility to communicate this, unfortunately, then really are lacking. Because I mean, okay, so just an example of in another forum is somebody who said she went to you're getting into a public facility, you're being screened normally, right? The person before her was screened and they were fine. The thermometer then read 17 when she was measured, and the person who was screening then did not know what to do and asked her, just stand here for a minute. And she tried to explain. I said, if this temperature was reading 17, I'd be dead. You see, even that kind of explanation at that point, this individual did not know what to do. But guess what? Everybody else in that line at that point, without knowing that maybe this gadget had failed, without knowing that this individual perhaps didn't know what to do with the gadget that was not working, everybody in that line took a step. Instantly.
What would you do?
I mean, so here you are. So yes, everything that we are dealing with, right, already predisposes you to this stigma, as it were, and makes you practice it a little bit more. So this is why I was saying there needs to be an undoing of the entire process if we're going to say it's okay then for you to be able to self-disclose.
It's going to take a while.
It'll take a while.
And then, the very place where you're supposed to seek help in the minds of people is a place you should fear.
Yeah.
I mean, don't go to hospital.
Don't go to hospital.
You fear.
Fear.
And all the stories coming from it generates even more fear.
Yeah.
Death.
So,
yeah. Where would you go?
Geoffrey in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Geoffrey.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, it is good indeed to make self-declaration once you've tested, just to ensure that you protect your family and those people you work around with. But unfortunate, it is how this COVID thing was handled in the first place when it came calling in our country. Because you realize the government itself, which is enlightening its citizen on how to treat the people who've tested, saying about stigma, they're the ones who did the wrong thing in handling those people who are purported or tested positive. Because you realize that even the police who are to enforce the curfew, they could pick people random on the street and take them to the quarantine. What was the meaning of the quarantine? Because all along I've known quarantine is basically meant for those people who've been tested and proved that they have the virus or so.
Yep.
But then, because this is what I learned in school, and quarantine was basically meant for animals that got sick and they had to be separated from others. But now I've gotten confused about the meaning of quarantine. Is it for those people who've not been tested, who've not been proved that they have the virus, or is meant for a random picking and just getting people in the quarantine? So it's not possible that anybody will be willing to go and take a test and make a declaration, because the stigma is already there.
Yep.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you so much.
Zachary Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning, Zachary.
Oh, I've just woken up, catching your conversation as good. And first of all, let me say that we feel sorry for the Naivasha lady. Oh, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And let anybody who is going through maybe such problems, let them talk out. Let them tell people, I'm at this stage and I can't move on. Please help me, yeah?
Yeah.
And now, for the issue of stigmatization, Mr. Eric, Mwalimu there will tell you that when the scourge of AIDS first of all hit our place, even mentioning it was just like a taboo, and it was associated with rich men who would travel to Mombasa, to those other places, and they had the money to indulge themselves in promiscuity. But then it started slowly dripping into us, because those guys who are going to Mombasa, they would come and probably to come and have engagements with their Shaba boys or their house helps, and the house helps are now the ordinary people. And eventually, you know, the road class now, the Horoi would now come back to our place, and you know, we engage with them, yeah, freely, yeah. The AIDS now became an issue that was in our community permanently, yeah. This road we started hata ni kitu tunaweza manage, unaona. So now the issue of COVID-19, when you hear that somebody in State House, somebody where in a high place, an MP has gotten it, you know. People will just say, "Oh, okay, I think we can. It can be our new normal." So the stigma is slowly going to come down, yeah.
Yeah.
But however, I agree with you that the Ministry of Health needs to come with a standardized policy of sending this message out to, you know, the community, yeah. That when Eric comes and confesses that, oh, I've got I think I interacted with somebody who has got COVID-19, and I feel like, you know, I should also now tell those people, all those people whom I've interacted with, you know, to come out and be tested, yeah. But it should not be like when Eric confesses that he feels like he has got contact with COVID-19, we feel like we want to stone him. No, that is not the case. That is the case. Thank you, guys.
Asante sana. Thanks, Zachary. Very many barriers to having openness.
Yes, well, you see, openness in itself in this country is stigmatized.
Good Lord. Even the thing that you want to use to remove the stigma is stigmatized.
Anaeleza watu shida yake kwa nini?
Wow, problems upon layers.
Haituhusu.
Why is he telling us his problems? Why are they telling us their problems?
Unataka nini?
See, the thing is, there are many things we can say about stigma, and there are many things we can say about COVID. But we could encounter worse things than COVID. When at least you have a situation where, for once, some epidemic did not begin on our continent. It began elsewhere, and we can look and study and understand what they're doing. Because the same disease, COVID is just COVID.
It's there.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, you can say it as a different strain. It's still COVID. You at least know what people have done. You know the mistakes they have made. Now, up to that point, we're doing okay. Now, what becomes almost unforgivable is when you know what has been done and what works, and then you choose to do something completely different. And then it actually affects your people. These are people who should commit seppuku. They should, even resigning is not enough.
Sorry, what?
They should do like the samurai.
They should do like the samurai. Because clearly, you are mandated with looking after the lives of people. And then with everything that we see, you clearly display to us that you're not capable. Now, if you want to know something else which is stigmatized in this country, it's resigning by people who have proved to be incompetent.
Incompetent. Stigmatized. You did what? Why? What's wrong with you? That is a question. Well, look, if we're talking...
Resign? No. No.
Talking about fighting this thing together, it is clear that this would be one way to do it. It would be very clear that this would be the way to do it. Unfortunately, a lot has to be undone. A lot has to be unraveled to be able to get to the point. I will be surprised if later on today we hear that some of these individuals who are said to be infected would come out and say, actually, it is one of it. I am one of them. I'll be very surprised if that happens.
If an MP came out and said, you know what, guys, I tested positive for COVID-19 and this is what's happening. Or we are likely to see those that say, you guys are saying that there's COVID in Parliament. I've been tested, I'm negative.
I'm negative, so where is this COVID?
My result.
We already have a clerk of the National Assembly who's saying, well, I have no idea what you people are talking about. I have not seen any reports. I've not heard anything. So from where I sit, this is not an issue.
And that's understandable because he wouldn't know.
Because nobody's saying
Because nobody has told him, you know what, I've tested positive.
Yes.
He wouldn't know. And it hasn't come to a part where it's official and formal. Like we saw communication from the State House saying X number of our staff have tested positive. There are those that said, oh, you know, it was wrong for the State House to come and say and disclose such kind of information.
But that was a very positive thing.
It was a very positive thing.
In fact, we should have gone further by the president actually encouraging his staff and saying, guys, come. All right.
It was a very, very positive thing.
Go ahead.
That's one way of normalizing it. Saying
you normalize
this thing can even come to you at State House.
Yep. And we are here, and this is what we're doing as a result of that.
Yes.
I encourage everybody else who would be in the same position to do the same as we have done.
And as we saw, the former Prime Minister also went and got himself tested.
Went and got
In the
tested.
full glare of the media.
Yep.
It says, and even said,
here's my certificate.
UK Prime Minister got positive.
Yes.
And declared completely openly and said, I am positive. A few days later, he was taken into ICU. He came out and said, you know what, actually, this thing, it took me down so fast, and this is the kind of care that I received. And now, doctors have said, I am recovering, I'm recuperating. Something like that. It just made it...
Yes,
it
normalized
it. Made it look easy, and then because it looks easy, then it becomes a normal thing to do.
Indeed.
And you destigmatize it.
Right.
Indeed. Coming to the end of the show, thank you very much for your participation today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And as we conclude, what is today's proverb, CT?
When you befriend a chief, remember that he sits on a rope. When you befriend people in high offices and people who have authority and people who hold, as we call them, big posts, please remember that those particular posts and jobs at some point will come to an end. So if there are benefits that are attendant with that particular position and you have benefited, your benefits will also come to an end with the position of this person whom you've befriended.
It doesn't last forever.
It never does it?
Okay. Unfortunate. Tomorrow we have another show, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Do a call. Say goodbye.
It was a heavy day today, but it was an important conversation to have, and I think it's one that we need to keep having. We can't get tired of talking.
Indeed. Yep. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. Have a good day.